Listeners, welcome to Idiobat, a Bruce Wayne podcast. Good evening, and we hope you're listening to this in the evening because that is when criminals lurk in the shadows and Batman does his dastardly business. I am one of your two hosts, Walker Bat Glenn.
And I am Zach Dick Grayson Glenn. Or Jason Todd. I think I'll go Dick Grayson.
Which one is the one that Joker murders?
Jason Todd.
Welcome back to our podcast within the podcast. We usually discuss Radiohead on this podcast, as the listeners know, but we have decided after discussing the 1989 Batman that we just had to go ahead and come back and do Batman Returns. I'm very, very excited to discuss this movie. If you haven't listened to our Batman episode, you got to go back and listen to the 1989 Batman episode.
You got to return.
Oh, you've got to return to the original. As Jack said to Kate, we have to go back. Do you remember that?
In Lost.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, you got it.
Season 4, the last season I watched.
Oh, okay. Well, you got
Previously on Idio Talk.
Oh, I don't know if I really liked this Batman movie, Zach. That was the previously on. We dropped that in. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. I'm really excited to talk about this movie. I think, I know that it's been a little bit of a training game to get me to truly keep things for on the pod, and I'm proud to say 90 days in I'm proud to say that with our upcoming Radiohead album, I don't know when this will be sequenced, so I won't say, but we've discussed very little, if not just completely kept any of our comments and thoughts to ourselves. And on this one, Batman Returns, I genuinely don't know how you feel about this movie.
Yeah, I don't know how
really
you feel about
excited.
it either, except for the one tease that we had when I think it was while recording the last Batman episode that we decided we're going to have to return to the Batcave and discuss Batman Returns.
Yeah.
And at that time, I did say, I remember liking Batman Returns better. Do you? And you emphatically said, no, you do not like it better. So that's all I know. But yeah, we have discussed none of our opinions about... We have discussed the mutual opinion that Michelle Pfeiffer is very sexy in this movie.
Well, we both agreed on that, too.
We agreed on that, so there's not going to be an argument about that, and we probably don't even need to discuss it.
No.
But other than that...
It won't come up at all.
But yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to get into in terms of preamble, but I know you came with some kind of background information about that movie. And as far as I'm concerned, we can get into that.
I am curious, though, just even ballpark, when, because I'm going to have to ballpark it too. When do you think the last time you watched Batman Returns was?
Wednesday night.
Prior to that rewatch. I know that you watched Batman 1989 the night Obama was elected in Celebration.
Yes.
Did this coincide at all?
I watched Batman Returns on the day of his inauguration.
Okay. Okay, all right. So it's been 13-ish years at this point. Okay.
No, honestly, I probably watched it, I bet, in the same week as the last time I watched Batman 1989.
Okay.
The last time I remember watching these movies was renting them at the house I lived in on Oregon Street in Berkeley. And at that time, my ex-girlfriend at the time worked at a movie theater that had like a hush-hush deal with a really, really amazing video rental store.
Yeah, that place was cool.
It was up the street from us, Real Video. It's now a dialysis clinic.
Cool.
Not as cool as being a video rental store.
Saving lives instead of...
Yeah, exactly. Instead of entertaining
providing
me.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
The real lifesaver.
Yeah, instead of renting me free movies while I get high. But yeah, Real Video, which I don't think came up last time, but it was an incredibly cool video store, huge, tons of great like employee sections, and then they would have all these fun categories, like in the action section, I remember them having like a one-man army shelf, and it was all those kind of movies. Or they, these are all drug movies.
Yeah.
They had it broken up very cool, and they all would go to the movie theater she worked at for free, and everyone who worked at that movie theater would rent videos for free, and so.
No wonder the place went under.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was the last gasp of the existence of video rental stores. But man, I really miss them. I really, I'm sure all of us are very familiar with the idea of endless choice, and you sit down to watch a movie on the streamers, and an hour and a half of flipping around can go by. Whereas when you go to a video store,
limited selection,
you make a decision, you pick a few things, and that's that. And I think I was very much on a point, because I just remember at that point in my taste, it wasn't necessarily movie wise opening up to a lot of stuff as so much as it was just I'm in my early 20s. I can watch stuff whenever I want. I'm a grown up, damn it.
And you weren't able to see Batman Returns in the theater, as we talked about, too.
Yes.
So you probably went straight to that one, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so I just remember very uncritically watching these Tim Burton Batman movies as like, these are my favorite movies and they're good. And that's the last time I saw it. And very similarly to 1989, this is the first time I've watched it with more of a critical eye. I ask you the same question. When would you say the last time you watched this movie was?
Gosh, I'm going to say under 10 years, probably, I don't know, 8 years ago, let's just say. Because usually, and I know I mentioned this on the last Batman episode, that I watched it. It had been 6 or 7 years since I'd watched 1989 Batman. And I feel like when I would do that, I would always watch the first two. Batman, as we'll talk about in future episodes, maybe. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, I would just say are slightly less than the count of amount of times I've watched them. But yeah, this one doesn't at all measure up to the first one in terms of my watch count. But I have seen it, a number of times. It had been a long time, and certainly a lot of new things jumped out at me. But yeah,
absolutely, yeah, I would say the same thing. I was thinking about. It's interesting because I feel like my memory of this one was a little more vivid and a little more clear, but I've definitely seen it substantially less than the first one. As we discussed last time, we owned a VHS copy of the first one that Zach watched every day for maybe a summer, maybe a year. Accounts vary, but he's seen it at least 100 times. This one, I don't really remember. I don't have a specific childhood memory to attach to it, but I know that it was a movie that we loved, that we were allowed to watch kind of unencumbered, which was also hard to come by. There was a lot of things that were heavily, if not outright censored, there was a what's the
scrutinized?
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. And
benefit concert.
And I got to tell you, we'll get into it, but watching this movie now, I was a little surprised that this is one of the movies we were the good Christian boys we were allowed to watch so much, because it's,
or were we? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I thought, or were we good Christian boys? Yeah, this was the movie that deprogrammed us. Yeah. And and that's why now I am, that Catwoman costume turned me into a leather daddy. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say too, because I don't have much of a history either, but before we jump into just kind of general facts, sort of a vivid childhood memory I have of this one, and I think a little teaser here, maybe feeds into my avoidance of this movie is, do you remember the video store when we were kids and lived in Colfax?
Pick a Flick?
Yeah, so this and a couple other movie covers, some of them escape me, but this one, and it had to do with probably that this was like a recent release. So this is going back all the way to when I was like probably 4 or 5 years old, because I was 3 years old when this movie came out. Listeners, movies used to take about a year to be released on home video after their theatrical release. So 4 to 6 years old, we would go into Pick a Flick. And I remember, and I still feel this way to this day, that the cover of the movie, it's very vivid coloring. It's kind of a lot of light blues and whites. Really stuck with me and scared me. And not to tip my hand, this movie I do still find, a little bit scary in certain moments. So that's kind of my reasoning, I think, for maybe avoiding it once I was able to rent movies on my own. But as we'll find, the reasons I think I avoided are much, much deeper than just the fact that the cover of it scared me.
Wonderful. I think it's an absolutely great cover, which was also the poster. Listeners can look it up, but it's a very vivid image of the heads of Batman and the two villains coming out of shadow, basically superimposed on top of each other. You have Batman's head, then Catwoman, and then Penguin. And like Zach said, everything is like hued with these blue. They're all coming out of blackness, but everything is like blue and white. And it's really, really cool. When you said that and brought up Pick a Flick, I did just have...
I can't even remember where it was situated in the Pick a Flick, dude. But go ahead. I'm sorry, please.
No, not at all. I just had an image of those. They would put, it was only VHS back at this time, and the VHS tapes would be in the physical box that you rented, but they would put a plastic sheath over it where you had to push in two tabs on the side to, and I just could picture that when you said that. I wanted to tell a quick Pick a Flick anecdote.
Please.
Which was, so Zach said this was like the Colfax video store where we spent some of our early childhood, small town.
Our dad would take us. It was fun.
Our dad would take us, but do you remember Dad had like a kind of like
contentious relationship with the owner. You guys, folks, video stores had a lot of power over the consumer back in the day. Picture Apple times 10.
Yes, and this was also before Blockbuster was a big ubiquitous chain.
Yeah.
And so it was a small local business in this extremely small town. We spent our adolescence in a town of about 20,000 people, census-wise. This was, I would estimate, about half that.
I was thinking like 2. But
yeah,
yes,
it's
very,
a very
very
small town. There's one small downtown area, one video store, only game in town, and they would wield that power with an iron fist. And there was a time that I was in there. Maybe you were there. Maybe you remember this. I think it's in our family lore.
It's in the lore, yeah.
As our dad went in and he rented the 10 Commandments, the Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, Cecil B. DeMille directed biblical epic. And that's a movie that he loved and I'm sure still loves. It's very long.
It was like 4 videotapes.
Well, a comic exaggeration. It was 2 videotapes. Okay. And Dad was renting it and they charged 2 movie prices. And he stood there. Who knows how long he actually stood there. In my mind, it was a very long time, but you know how it is when you're a kid. But I just remember being little, looking up, like looking from below the counter at him and this woman, like arguing with each other. And the thing I can remember Dad saying is, so basically, you're charging me double because this movie is longer. And her going, it's 2 tapes, sir. And he's like, but it's not 2 movies. And that's my Pick a Flick story.
A universally dad story.
A universal dad story. And that, like, I remember it was like, this was the only place to rent movies, but he was irritated anytime he was in there.
Oh, yeah.
Henceforth.
Yes, absolutely.
And rightly so. That also is a totally unfair price gouge.
Yeah, and they are no longer with us either, just like the place in the Bay Area.
Yes, the video rental store, Pick a Flick, is no longer with
gone.
us. Yeah. They now own a massive streaming company.
So I thought we'd just kind of jump in, pick up where we left off last, I guess. Batman Returns. It is the sequel to the 1989 Batman. It was released on a Friday, June 19th, 1992. I'm not sure if that was also chosen in homage to what was now the band Radiohead. So
yes.
So probably not. They probably saw a lot of success from releasing Batman 1989 on a Friday and were like, hey, let's just go with that. That other band has changed their name. It's, we don't know what's ahead of them anyways.
Yeah, we're gonna reference them in a less direct way. Yes. We don't want to crowd their spot. They're doing what they do. We're doing what we do.
Absolutely.
We can coexist.
So it was directed by Tim Burton, who had directed the first film.
Batman in the 90s now.
Batman
this is not
in the
an
90s.
80s Batman. This is the 90s Batman.
Exactly.
We'll talk about it.
Screenplay was by Daniel Waters. The story was by Daniel Waters and Sam Hamm. So Sam Hamm, as we discussed, and Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron wrote the first Batman film. Sam Hamm wrote quite a few drafts for this film, and Burton, that's why it took such a long time. We'll get into that in a second, but Burton, it took a long time to get him back on the project because the original drafts for this film were beyond ridiculous. One of them involved Catwoman and Penguin seeking a hidden treasure. I don't even know how that would have played out on screen, but basically Daniel Waters should get the full story by credit to his detriment potentially.
But I'm already I saw that once again there was a separate story by credit and a screenwriting credit. Story by usually means that some version of a draft that somebody retains some ownership is in here, but it's not their script anymore. So it's a different credit and it's paid out differently by the Writers Guild. I thought that I saw Sam Hamm also had a screenwriting credit.
He did. So it's Daniel Waters and Sam Hamm. But Sam Hamm is just the skeletal remains of what his original story by credits were basically that Catwoman and Penguin were in the film. Everything else Daniel Waters rewrote.
But did Sam Hamm... does it say written by
Daniel Waters and Sam Hamm?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the story by credit is to
Daniel Waters. I'm sorry. Daniel Waters and Sam Hamm. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So they do two credits even. That's okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Produced by Denise DeNovi. Wasn't super familiar with her, but she has produced a lot of Burton's films, and she was pretty instrumental in having this be a fully realized Tim Burton vision. She is quoted as saying that basically what you saw on screen in the 1989 Batman film was about 50% of Tim's vision. So the other 50% being probably Anton Furst and all the other folks that make movies happen. Cinematography was by Stefan Sapsky. Music by Danny Elfman. Pause for applause for Danny Elfman.
Yep.
The running time of this film is 2 hours, 6 minutes. So right around same length as the first Batman film, maybe 5 or 6 minutes longer. The budget on this film, $80 million. So the 1989 Batman, so we're talking a 3-year gap. Inflation, to my knowledge, hadn't really changed the value of the dollar that much. But the 1989 Batman film cost $48 million and was about $8 million over budget. This one clocked in at a cool 80. Cool. So it'll be interesting to talk about where we think that money shows up. In terms of box office, this made $267 million worldwide. That is a 35% drop off from the 1989 Batman.
Whoa!
Which made $411 million, which at the time was the 5th highest grossing film of all time. And when adjusted for inflation, I think it is maybe in the 7th spot. So the first Batman is still one of the most successful films ever made.
I'm shocked by that 35% drop off. The cultural impact of this movie felt huge to me at the time.
Well, it did set several records. I mean, so it did beat out the first movie in terms of 2-day gross. But a lot of times, like, what's interesting about movies that make a lot of money up front is they usually set their own record for percentage drop off, which this movie did at the time as well.
Okay.
So I think it saw like a 63% drop off from week 2 to 3. And, this box office decline led to a substantial changes in the direction of the franchise. Again, we can cover that in future episodes if there are future Batman episodes. But I think it'd be fun just to go through as we dissect the movie and its air quotes around this plot and style, why that drop off may have occurred. Obviously, everyone was super excited to see a new Batman film. Very, very limited selection, if a selection at all, of superhero films to see. People were crazy for Batman worldwide, and obviously even more so after the first one. But, pardon me. But McDonald's had a Happy Meal accompanied with this film. They were very upset at the direction of the film.
I had one of the toys.
Really? Which one?
It was the Batmobile that the outer shell comes off. And
oh, yeah, I
shoots
remember
out
that.
the bullet Batmobile.
Well, yeah, it's good it wasn't the pissing dildo penguin toy that McDonald's was upset by. That's kind of all I had on the background writing, etc. I was going to go into the cast. Do you want to add anything?
Of course. No.
Okay. So, we can go through this a little bit quicker this time. Michael Keaton plays Bruce Wayne Batman. He was paid $11 million to return as Batman. He and Burton both did not have plans to return, which is just, it's just interesting. That is typically not how deals are structured nowadays. I mean, even you fast forward 7 years into the future to The Matrix. It was, I think, immediately after the film's success that Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss signed on for, a total of 3 films. Same with the next Batman. Just pick a superhero franchise or something that does well. So it just shows you culturally, I think, that actors... Honestly, I think actors took themselves a little bit more seriously in a good way. The fact that Michael Keaton was like, I played Batman, I have other aspirations, I think is pretty cool.
I think that...
What do you think?
I agree with you. I think it should... I don't know if it's that actors don't maintain the same desire to do more of a variety of work. I think it's because now superhero movies have completely taken over the film industry. And it's like, if you want to be in some little indie that's made for $5 million or whatever, you better maintain your career by fucking playing the Scarlet Witch for the next 8 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a shame, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think, not to derail us, but I think Scarlett Johansson, probably within the Marvel universe, is probably the best example of that. Like Robert Downey Jr., he's a fine actor, but I haven't seen him in anything that looks worth watching since he's been Iron Man. Chris Evans, kind of same deal. I actually really like Chris Hemsworth, the actor who plays Thor. I think it's awesome that he's just, I am Thor and I'm funny and other shit.
Yeah.
But Scarlett Johansson, Marriage Story, that was a fairly recent film. Other great work. But
yeah, she kind of started as an indie darling and has maintained that.
She's maintained being a darling.
Yes.
So Danny DeVito, Oswald Cobblepot, Penguin. Let me just move my notes here a little bit. Michelle Pfeiffer as Selena Kyle, Catwoman. Quick note here. I think that Michelle Pfeiffer was paid $3 million for this role. Further proof for anybody that may have their suspicions that the gender pay gap is not a real thing. Michael Keaton was paid $11 million and Michelle Pfeiffer was paid $3 million. Now, she was hired on at $3 million. They didn't know what kind of a performance she was going to turn in, but just wanted to throw that nugget in there.
Yeah, I'll say right away, I think she was underpaid.
I agree. I'm sure we'll cover that in exhaustive detail here soon. I don't know what Christopher Walken was paid, but he pays Max Schreck.
Oh, he was playing a character?
That was genuine. Hilarious.
That was Christopher Walken. He lost himself so deeply in this role.
Okay, so and I put in my parentheses here, I feel like he was kind of the Robert Wool of the film. Not that he was meant to be really comedic relief, but he's just sort of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
All right. Michael Gough is back as Alfred Pennyworth, aka the worst butler. Although he is a little bit better in this film.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be positive here.
No, I think you're right, but I'm excited to talk about
different at least, right?
Yeah.
We'll say.
Yeah.
Pat Hingle, Commissioner James Gordon. Michael Murphy plays the incumbent mayor. Now, I've not seen this actor in any other films that I'm aware of, but
I recognized his face.
Yeah, he's probably a character actor. The reason
actors.
why I wanted to point him out and a couple names below his is that mayors have a lot of power in Gotham, since this mayor is the deciding factor for a new power plant being built in Gotham. And we'll get into that a little further, but not a governor, not a state senator, a mayor is the person. So yeah, that's an important character. Michael Murphy playing the mayor. I don't even know if he has a name.
Yeah, Gotham seems pretty like isolationist.
Oh
in
my
its,
God.
like politics.
In this movie.
Yeah, it's like it exists like it's like this like fucking world pariah. Like
it's a dream.
Yeah, it's just like, where is this? Like it's
I almost wish
it's like run like Putin's Russia or something. It's just like we do whatever we want. Yeah, it's like a nuclear superpower of 38 people.
And I wish too that I hadn't harped on the size of Gotham so much in our first episode, because boy oh boy is that something that I want to talk about later. Almost done with the cast though. Andrew Bryniarski plays Charles Chip Shrek. That is Christopher Walken's character, or not. That's his character's son, though. Very important character as well.
The Shreks.
The Shreks. Christy Conway plays the Ice Princess. Vincent Chiavelli, R.I.P., plays Red Triangle gang member. And other cameos include Paul Rubens and Jan Hooks. And I believe that is all that I have on the cast.
Great.
All right.
So do we want to get into the movie?
Actually, I got a little bit more background.
Yeah.
let's see here. Most of this information can be found on Wikipedia. Okay, yeah. So this is interesting, and I know you'll remember this too, Walker. So I used to have a collectible making of book from the official Warner Brothers store. And I know you had a magazine that maybe you had even found at like a thrift store. Remember, it had the poster of Batman holding the remote control, and we had it hanging up in our room.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm
well,
sorry.
Folks, Walker was a cooler teenager than I, and he would find cool collectible stuff at thrift stores. And yeah, there was just a zine. You know, it might have been Starlog, might have been something else, but I am also into collectibles, and I bought it was from the Warner Brothers store, a making of. And I was looking at it, and God dagnammit, everything could be found on Wikipedia that's in this book. But it is funny to read it and see the like optimistic tone that this making of book has. Like this is so weird, but it's really excited about the actor who's playing the son of Max Schreck. Oh. And I'm like, who is this guy?
They're like, we expect big things for this doofus.
Literally, like, this guy's going to be the son of Max Schreck. And I'm like, who is this guy? So yeah, so really interesting stuff there. Coming back to Robin Williams, he was slated to play the Penguin. Because the sequel was inevitable. Like I briefly mentioned at the top there, Tim Burton did not want to come back. Burton was focused on directing Edward Scissorhands and writing The Nightmare Before Christmas, which came out the following year in 1993.
And did Edward Scissorhands come out between
in 1990?
Batman and
yeah,
okay,
which is critical because I we'll talk about that in a minute. So Burton was focused on other things. Again, we can talk about our feelings on Tim Burton as a director as we go through, but I do find it admirable, regardless of the quality and the breadth of his career, that he was like, no thanks, I'm busy on passion projects. That's pretty cool. So in January 1991, Tim Burton was brought back on as director under the sole condition, and I don't know if this was contractual or not, but that he be given full creative control. So he was able to replace a large part of the crew and immediately relegated John Peters. He was the producer who dated actor Kim Basinger. To executive producer. That is, you'll notice that in the credits, executive producer. Okay. So they were not friends. They did not get along.
I see.
Anton Furst was replaced by production designer Bo Welsh. Furst later died by suicide in late 1991. So I don't think that he was tied up in other projects. They're not related as far as I understand. But just an amazing talent and really significant loss. Minimal direction was given to writer Daniel Waters in revising Sam Hamm's scripts, with the only emphasis being Catwoman be a sexy vixen. Now, I don't know what the word vixen means. Do you know what that means, Walker?
Vixen, is it kind of like one of those words like Jezebel or something? Like it's like a powerful, a dark, powerful woman?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I just wrote it down, the direct quote.
Or like, is it like maybe it has to do more sexuality, like a sex pot?
Okay. Yeah, okay.
I'll
Sexy sex pot.
You can
so Waters states that he and Burton did not consult the comic books at all and chose to focus on the art instead. Normally that kind of stuff would annoy me, but we'll come to that in a second. Waters and Burton both agreed that they wanted zero connection to the 1989 Batman plot-wise. What does vixen mean? Do you have it?
Well, the original definition is it's the name of a female fox.
Okay.
And
like in Fox and the Hound.
Yes, and informally, it is a spirited or fierce woman, especially one seen as sexually attractive. Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I like that. I mean, we'll cover this too, but yes, she is definitely fierce in addition to being highly sexual. So
yeah,
almost done here. Thanks for your patience. So Waters and Burton both agreed that they wanted zero connection to the 1989 Batman plot-wise. Now, we'll talk about Vicky Vale is mentioned more than a few times, but that was obligatory. They didn't even want to have that in there.
Okay.
So yeah, my last note here says, Walker, any interesting trivia or details on the background before we go into the plot?
I don't think so. I think that was very, very well covered.
All right.
And I appreciate it. And I think it really helps to kind of put the discussion we're going to have about this movie in context. And it also, some of the stuff you're telling. So I told Zach before the mics were on, last time I did do some cursory online research. But this time I watched the movie. I watched it starting at about 2 hours later than I planned to. So I watched Batman from about 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then immediately went to sleep. Yeah. So
it was great, pleasant dreams.
It was the last thing my eyeballs saw before like immediately hitting the pillow. But I was engaged in it, I will say. And I will not really attempt to encapsulate my feelings about the movie right now, except to say that I enjoyed watching it.
Mm-hmm.
and I took notes about kind of the things I observed and some of the differences between it and its predecessor. And some of the stuff you're saying is definitely explanatory about some of these little things that I noticed. But
well, yeah, and when we went in our last one, like one thing when we were playing the episode, I was thinking, my God, it'll be so much fun to have the plot of Batman 1989 explained to me. I did not anticipate that I would be more excited to have the plot of Batman Returns explained to me by you.
Okay.
And I need some help, too. So could you fill me and the listeners in?
Yeah, okay. So what is the plot of this movie? Let's see. I'm trying to think of how to encapsulate it without going beat by beat. But I do think the opening beat is very important story-wise.
Very much so.
So this movie... First thing I love about this movie is this movie called Batman Returns opens on a shot of Paul Rubens.
Yes.
Which I love. Lest you not be sure that Tim Burton has been given more creative control.
Yeah, are they friends or something?
Well, he directed Pee-wee's... Oh, you're being funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Paul Rubens, who I'll say what he plays. So it opens... first of all, I'm assuming there's a lot of miniatures in this movie, like
models.
A lot of the sets are like probably like city models built to scale and things like that. So it opens on this crazy sweeping shot of like this high iron wrought fence and this like
the
massive...
exteriors are all miniatures. Yeah,
they're really cool.
Really
and it
cool.
opens on the Danny Elfman score. In fact. Maybe I should just play a little bit in the background of the opening score.
You know, it's a dark movie. I would say the score is decidedly somehow a little darker too.
I think that Danny Elfman
it's moving.
Sounds like he was. It sounds to me like he was also given more freedom. I would say in terms of the score, it's like it's less punchy than the 1989.
So we got a familiar
score.
march in here, but then
he still has the same melody, but. And this opening score is called Birth of a Penguin. And this is like Penguin's theme. I noticed this melody comes
it's recurring.
Out. Anyway.
Which
so
is
giant pipe organ. Like
we didn't really talk about Danny Elfman in the background too much, but that I think is one of his geniuses. What is the word? One of his features as a genius is that he is really good at weaving a recurring melody throughout the film. Whether it goes up or down, changes keys, it does recur. And I just think that that's something that's missing a lot in film scores nowadays.
Yes. So
we open the movie.
Birth of a Penguin is the opening score. And that is also the opening of this movie. It opens on a shot of Paul Rubens with a monocle. He's in a massive Gothic mansion. He has a monocle, a tightly clipped mustache, and he's smoking a cigarette out of a long cigarette holder.
Just like the Penguin does in the Burgess Meredith.
Yes. And you hear the screaming of a woman from another room. A birth is happening, and she's given birth to a baby that you pick up through context clues, has some sort of deformity, physical differences. They're horrified, right? And what you find out in the beginning is through all actually really effectively done with no dialogue.
Very much so.
You see they have this baby in a cage. You can't see it, but it's in the cage, shaking its bars.
Yeah, despite all its rage, it's still just
a penguin in a cage. And it pulls the family cat into the cage. Oh. You hear it, I guess, kill the cat. This is in the first 5 minutes of this fucking movie.
Presumably maybe eat it.
Yes.
But yes, cat dies. Setting the table for a contentious relationship between a penguin and a cat. I don't know if you caught that analogy.
I sadly did not until just now. But that's some good foreshadowing.
Absolutely.
So it turns out that this baby is who will be one of our two main villains. It's the Penguin. These ashamed rich parents, we see them drinking martinis and staring disgustedly at the cage that they have their child in. It's an amazing opening scene.
Amazing.
And then you see them as snow falls sneak the baby bassinet out and throw it into the river in a sort of Moses allegory.
Yep. There's a lot of allegories that don't fully materialize in this film.
No, and
but yes, I got
that's where the similarities
kind of even
down the river, and that is where the similarities between Moses and the Penguin end. I would say he does not free his people. And that's the opening of this movie, and it turns out that that's the Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in the sewers. So the plot kicks off 33 years later.
Mm-hmm.
It's Christmas time in Gotham City.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor is giving some sort of rah-rah speech. Oh man, I'm doing a bad job.
No,
at this.
you're on it, dude. You're rolling.
So it's Christmas time in Gotham City.
It opens in the boardroom meeting with the mayor.
It's a boardroom meeting with the mayor and Max Schreck. Max Schreck is trying to talk the city leadership into letting him build a new power plant. Now, I don't want to stop and do specific beats nonstop, but I wrote down Christopher Walken, Max Schreck's opening line, and it is so funny to me. So it's the mayor's like talking about like, you know, people want to celebrate something. It's been a hard few years in Gotham or whatever. And he's, you know, talking about some vague, like, you know, hopey changey bullshit or whatever.
Sure.
And Christopher Walken is sitting there in the most Tim Burton-fied getup. Pinstripe, but huge pinstripe, huge gloves. Tails on his jacket, gloves, and shocking white. Like
or hair, sorry.
Yeah, it's like Beethoven hair.
Yeah, it's very Vincent Price too.
There you go. And
Beethoven, yeah.
And so the mayor's going on, and Christopher Walken's opening line is, "I feel almost vulgar in this Yuletide context mentioning the new power plant."
I've noticed you push off when I praise your impressions, but you're Tom and everyone has a Chris Walken, but that was great.
Thank you. Chip. I just love it. I feel almost vulgar in this Yuletide context mentioning the new power
Who
plant.
wrote this fucking dialogue?
Daniel Waters. But I did really enjoy that line, and I really enjoyed the stink he put on it. But yeah, so that's what's going on in the like Gotham City politics is they don't want to let him build this power plant. He is like a powerful businessman in every sense of the word. We find out he's a slumlord who owns half the property in Gotham City. He owns a department store that's the bit, and he also now wants to do this power plant. So he's the richest guy in Gotham.
Yeah. They kind of refer to him too as like the way they sort of refer to Bruce Wayne in the future Batman movies. Like they're like, Max Schreck is the Gotham's golden boy that like Gotham needs, even though we see right away, to Walker's point, that he is kind of corrupt and not to cut you off, but the very next scene we see that he's kind of blackmailing the mayor who's not in favor of this new power plant. So we see that he's bad and duplicitous, but it's interesting how they keep referring to him as like Gotham's golden boy.
Right.
Anyways, please.
Well,
continue.
he's a total creep, and I don't mean that in the Radiohead sense of he's a creep and a weirdo. I mean that he's like a bad dude.
Totally.
Not in the way that he feels alienated because he has the heart of a poet, like Tom York.
Absolutely.
And in the same opening scene, we meet Selena Kyle. Selena Kyle is the administrative assistant, but Zach, she's ugly in this scene because she has glasses and her hair is pulled up.
Totally.
So at this point, I have no idea that.
But she does have ideas.
She has ideas, which I'm not crazy about, and I don't. And at this point, we don't know that Selena Kyle is hot because, as I said, her hair is pulled up in a messy bun, and she has glasses. So you have no idea that this administrative assistant is improbably attractive. But it's a total gross boys club in the boardroom. They're debating about this power plant. She says, "I have an idea," and everybody stares daggers at her. And she says, "Well, actually, really more of a question." To which Christopher Walken says, "I'm afraid we haven't properly housebroken Miss Kyle." The first of a never-ending litany of cat puns that will be in this movie.
Oh, I didn't realize you could. As a proud owner of 3 cats, they are can't really housebreak.
You haven't properly housebroken them.
Well, I mean, they use their litter box, but that's about as obedient as you could ever make a cat.
Yeah, but he basically says, you know, "Hey, sorry that this lady just spoke up," and then makes a really demeaning joke about how she makes a hell of a cup of coffee. We're instantly introduced to her as somebody who is mistreated, stepped upon, a doormat, and incredibly frustrated by
Yes.
her place in life. And she's a person who like, we don't know where she's from, but you get the sense that kind of like a corn-fed Midwesterner who strikes out for New York City. She went to Gotham.
I hadn't thought of that. That's
to
a good
kind of
point. Absolutely.
experience the like make something of herself, and is getting kind of chewed up and spit out by the reality of what it's like in Gotham for her. Plot of this movie, the mayor and Max Schreck go down and they're doing some tree lighting ceremony. The Penguin is watching from the sewer.
Very cool shot.
Very cool shot of his hands over the sewer bars, looking at Gotham City from below. His legions of circus freaks, his gang, pop out of a giant
The Red
present.
Triangle Circus Gang. Yeah.
And I guess kind of a Trojan horse illusion. This big giant present rolls up. This gang pops out.
Pops out of the present. So Walker's doing an amazing job, but listeners, it is a giant present with a bow on it, of which Max Schreck and the mayor are looking at like, huh, what's going on? And just hordes of individuals burst out of this present.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's, I think, a pretty affecting opening scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
very
it's
much
not
so.
the opening scene, but the first Batman scene. The first Batman scene, and you'd assume that it's going to be the first of many Batman scenes. It might be the first of 4 Batman scenes in the entirety of this movie, but we'll talk about that. So I'm gonna try to nutshell this a little more. So the basic plot of this movie is the Penguin, through blackmail, he kidnaps Max Schreck, says, "You're gonna help me get out of this sewer and make something legitimate of myself. I want to find out who my parents were, where I came from, and you're going to introduce me to high society." He has blackmail on him because Max Schreck is an incredibly corrupt businessman, and he has
murdered his partner.
And it's a pretty funny scene where Danny DeVito's pulling things out of a sack that Max Schreck has flushed down the toilet. One of them being his ex-business partner's disembodied hand.
I'm Fred's hand.
Yeah, I
love that
I want to say I think Danny DeVito is really funny in this movie. I don't like everything that they do with his character, but I think his performance is has a lot of humanity to it when it needs to. He makes the Penguin very empathetic, which is no small feat because visually it's disgusting. And also a lot of the behavior of the Penguin is really disgusting, and not just in the way that what villains are doing is wrong. There's some pretty icky, there's some pretty icky pre-Me Too kind of him.
He's very horny.
Being horny in a salty way, played for laughs.
Okay.
That we'll get into.
Please go. Please continue.
But in any case, so that's the Penguin's plot. Is he says, Max Schreck, you're going to introduce me to high society, and I want to find out who my parents are. Meanwhile, Selena Kyle discovers the truth behind her boss Max Schreck's power plant, which is that it is actually a scam that will involve sucking power out of Gotham City.
Yes.
And I assume that's some sort of money embezzling.
Because you can resell power on the open market. So basically, you can.
Okay.
And IRL, as the kids say. I don't think Tim Burton or Daniel Waters actually do this. I think they just got lucky. But yeah, I think the idea being that like the state of Texas can sell power to the state of California, for instance.
Okay.
But we're talking Gotham, so Gotham could sell the Metropolis.
Sure, the 2 places that exist, or to the Court of Maltese, the 3rd place that exists. But yeah, in any case, I don't know that the details of the plot that Max is hatching are super fleshed out. I also don't know that I care that much. What you get is that he's corrupt. His secretary has discovered it. He pushes her out of a window, and she suffers a psychotic break and becomes Catwoman. I won't get bogged down in the details of how that happens now, because I think we should kind of go character by character, and I want to really delve into what happens with Catwoman.
Man. Yeah.
But anyway, suffers a psychotic attempted murder, survives, turns into Catwoman. Batman, in the meantime, is suspicious of Oswald Cobblepot's motives. Oswald Cobblepot is very embraced by the city of Gotham. Max Schreck convinces him to run for mayor. Everybody loves this guy, and they love this redemption arc. He comes back, finds out who his parents are, in air quotes, if he didn't already know who his parents were, forgives them publicly. People love this redemption arc. Max Schreck decides, I'm going to push you to run for mayor to get my political opponents out of the way.
Yeah.
Only person who is smelling bullshit is, you guessed it, Batman.
Alfred. Yes.
I want to talk about the scene where him and Alfred discuss the Penguin.
You're on a fucking roll. Keep going.
And meanwhile, Catwoman starts aligning herself with Penguin because she, for her own reasons, because of dealing with the violence and dismissal, and of these powerful men, she also wants to take her revenge on the elite of Gotham. Her and Penguin team up. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne begins a romance with Selina Kyle, and also is fighting Catwoman. Neither of them realize their secret identities. There's a ton of sexual tension between the Batman and Catwoman when that's going on. You can tell he's never had to fight a villain that's made him horny before, and it causes her to get the drop on him like more than a few times. And
Batman has a big heart too, as we'll discover.
He's a big something, as she alludes to later in the movie. And all this culminates into the Penguin eventually being exposed by Batman as deceiving the people of Gotham, and that hugely integral. Penguin and Catwoman decide to frame Batman to get him out of the way, and so Batman eventually is able to expose that the reign of terror is not him, but is the Penguin's gang. Everyone rejects the Penguin. They basically run him out of town on a rail, almost literally. He goes back to the sewer.
Where he was initially dumped as a child.
Yes, fully animalistic, has said, society has rejected me, and changes his plan to, I am going to kidnap and murder all the firstborn sons of Gotham as revenge for what my parents did to me. Batman figures out that Selina Kyle is Catwoman, that she's plans to kill Max Schreck, is trying to save her from herself from doing this. And Penguin
goes full throttle with his
plan. Goes full scorched earth, I guess. His plan, Batman thwarts his plan to kill all the firstborn children, so instead he sends out an army of literal penguins strapped with bombs. Batman foils his plot. Penguin is killed in their ensuing fight. Catwoman kills Max Schreck, disappears. Batman learns that women are people too by the end of the movie.
You're so right.
It's Christmas time. I love this because the end of the movie is,
I have such a little boy like frame of mind when I watch these, because I was like, when I watched it.
Well, it was really funny.
That way, I'm like, you're right.
It was really funny because we'll talk about it. I don't think that Batman is, we talked about Batman's problematic treatment of Vicky Vale in the last movie. I feel like Batman doesn't do anything that I can remember that is like flagrantly terrible in terms of like sexism or his treatment of Selina Kyle in this movie. But it is really funny. The bow that they put on this movie is, he's really sad.
Merry Christmas, huh?
Yeah, they're in the limo, and I guess Batman spends his Christmas riding around his limo with Zach's doing a very good impression of Michael Keaton's face right now.
Too bad this is a podcast.
Yeah, I know, but you do. He does really like to push his lips out. You can tell he knows he's
Is Michael Keaton handsome? Can we just ask you and the audience?
I think he's
so of his era, but I
find him handsome. Okay. I think maybe he's more sexy than has like a beautiful face.
Sure.
Because he has that like, I mean, John Hamm is very handsome, but he has that kind of Don Draper, like, you're a little bit like, oh, this guy's got some edge and some darkness to it.
Yeah.
And not just in Batman. Like, he kind of always plays, he he always has like a kind of like a little bit of a like
Crazy
angry
eye.
smile, and he glares a lot. And-
Yeah.
But I think he's a good looking guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
Not a traditional leading man, though, I would say.
no, not at all.
I would say he's less chiseled than every Batman since has been.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But yeah, so end of the movie, he's sad. What happened to Catwoman? And he's riding around with Alfred in the limo, and Alfred says, "Merry Christmas, sir!" And Batman says, "Merry Christmas, Alfred." And goodwill toward men takes a beat, goes, "And women." And then we see looking up at the night sky on top of a building, who's still there? Catwoman. She's not dead, and that is Batman Returns.
Yes.
How'd I do?
You did amazing, man. I mean, well, quick trivia, because I think last time you described a plot, or described the plot, I commented that the final shot of the movie is a static shot of, it is a literal statue. I'm talking 1989 Batman, folks, with a cape, because you can see the only thing moving in the shot is a cape wrapped around a statue. Not the case with this one. I mean, like Walker was saying, a lot of miniatures and all that, but it shows Catwoman, because she is on her ninth life, kind of lift her head into frame. It's a really cool shot, as if to say, you know, there'll be future adventures, and not really in such a way. I still don't take it as she'll appear in future movies. Obviously she did not, but again, movies were planned so differently in that they weren't planned as franchises back then.
Yeah.
I mean, even Indiana Jones wasn't planned that way. The reason I'm lingering on this so long, Walker, is that is not Michelle Pfeiffer. That after they did test screenings, audiences reception was mixed. And I don't know that they thought this shot would save the movie, but I really do feel like it puts, we haven't gotten.
Oh, so they didn't
thoughts.
show, they didn't have a shot establishing that she was still alive.
No, it was put in 2 weeks before the film, cost $255,000, and it's maybe 2 seconds.
I think that
I think it
was
very
the right
well
move.
put. Absolutely,
Because
it's still gut wrenching.
Yeah, because she's the most sympathetic character in the movie, and I think that
It's exciting too.
And yes, and what happens to Penguin, I think, is justified by the movie. They do a good job of pulling it off, but I mean, Penguin meets a very pathetic end, and it's I think that it is appropriate for one of the two extremely mistreated villains to live to fight another day. Especially because I also agree with, I'll say this right now. I agree with everything Catwoman does in this movie. And
Michelle Pfeiffer is convincing as hell.
yeah, I know. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to proceed with our discussion. If we should.
Do you want to take, can we take 5?
Yeah.
Before we go to general thoughts?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
People get ready.
Now, Zach, I feel almost vulgar in this Yuletide context, asking what your general thoughts are about this movie. But what are your general thoughts about Batman Returns? Do you like it? Do you love it? Why or why not?
Okay, so that's a tough question to answer. It's very well worded and straightforward. But like a politician, I'm going to skirt the question and answer. No, I mean, so, I have this written down. There's really no reason for me to, but this movie is proof positive to me that a movie doesn't have to be good, and air quotes around the word good, in the traditional context in order to be effective. So the movie's not particularly well written. These are all opinions. Okay, duh. The movie's not particularly well written. The acting is up and down. It's art directed within an inch of its life, but it really elicits a strong emotional reaction and effect from me. It scares me. It makes me incredibly sad. And the fact that Tim Burton didn't want Batman Returns to exist in the same world as the 1989 Batman is baffling in today's context of world building and intertextual connection and all that shit. But it oddly is refreshing in today's world of constant intertextual world building. Like I just said, the Marvel universe and what DC is trying unsuccessfully to do. It's almost like Tim Burton is doing an episode of the week through his weird and dark prism, of like Batman, who the Cape Crusader, but in a very, very dark way. And it's interesting because following this movie, following the release of this movie was The production and release of the show that I know we both love, which is Batman the Animated Series, came out in 1993. So that was episodic. And I think that, as weird as these Burton Batman movies are, they really set the table for a Batman that I love, right, in the animated series. And so, I wrote these notes out a little bit before I watched it and a little bit after, but I'm pretty certain that let's see here. How do I say this? I'm pretty certain that the last time I watched this movie, the portrayal of women on screen and how they were written is not something I thought about. Which is something that you grow up a little bit, and it's certainly in culture and stuff to look out for those kinds of things. And it's not that Selena Kyle and / Catwoman shouldn't be sexy at all. It's more the way Tim Burton writes female characters that I think is pretty dated and is very Woody Allen-ish in that, or Woody Allen influence, I should say, in that they're very effective archetypes, but really telling when you examine a director's full body of work. And I would put Selena Kyle in there, even though she is a very, very strong character with a super interesting backstory and all that, but and I mentioned Woody Allen again, Angelica Houston and is that Crimes and Misdemeanors?
Yeah.
She's outstanding in that movie.
Yeah.
But she is sort of a paranoid, crazy, irrational mistress, and that's really all she's relegated to.
Right.
Selena Kyle is sexually strong and independent once she becomes Catwoman. But this is not unique to Batman Returns, that the portrayal of women are sort of very boxed in.
Do you mean too, because I think I know what you're getting at, where I do think I think Michelle Pfeiffer really elevates the performance,
yes.
and I think she gets to do some really fun and empowered stuff, but they really have her essentialized to, she's either complete doormat and totally ineffective and has no backbone whatsoever, and then she transforms into the vixen, right? And then it's she's hypersexual at all times and also completely crazy. Is that kind of what you're saying? That
absolutely.
There's no shades of nuance in either
and think about
thing.
our other female character, the Ice Princess, who's blonde and
an idiot.
A bimbo, yeah. I mean, that
oh my God, is that a camera?
Yeah, that character is blatantly offensive. This is not my torch to carry. I mean, but I don't have a problem saying that. And I should note too, comparing Tim Burton to Woody Allen, Michelle Pfeiffer has worked with Tim Burton again. Helena Bonham Carter, his ex-wife, continues to work with him. I don't think that there's any sort of sort of clout of negativity like Woody Allen has, but also I've watched a lot of Tim Burton movies, Edward Scissorhands included, and it's this is a recurrent theme of these really flat, one-dimensional female characters.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean that was kind of just a little bit on that, and I mean I think talking about Tim Burton, he's an amazing artist in the right setting, but he seems to really struggle in the balancing act of fantasy and any element of realism. Right. And it's I'm not saying he isn't a capable director. I guess he is, but his movies are such vignettes that are absent of a storyline connecting all of these vignettes together in a cohesive thing. And I think that really is a problem in this movie. Again, not saying the movie isn't effective, but he gets too focused on backstory and then he rushes all the other elements. Right. So it's the backstories are interesting to both these villains and are the moments with very much the best acting, but I would venture to say, Walker, the best acting of Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer's entire career, in my opinion.
Sure.
But they take up the entire movie such that the main character has no arc. Batman has no arc in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of does with what you joked
goodwill
about.
to women.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, this is why there's two people hosting this podcast, not one. But this is a sort of magic trick. This movie is a magic trick, and the first one to a degree too, in that Burton, not only did he manage to convince a major studio that he was the right man for the job, they wanted him back for this one. And he pulled this magic trick off twice, that he made a movie with the word Batman in the title that is about the villains.
Right.
And it's I think of the book Wicked, or the stage play, but I've not seen the play. I've read the book. It's really interesting, and I feel like studios are just now catching up to this. Cruella de Vil, those movies are, in my opinion, no fun to watch because they try to humanize the villains a little too much to where they're not villainous anymore. It is super interesting to be what is this? I mean, this is where Burton, I think, shines is like, and we'll talk about this when we go through character by character, but these villains are human, and Batman is not really the good guy. You see that they have these tormented backstories, and it is a movie about their POV, essentially, I think. So studios are now trying to do this with Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, all these other movies, and they're not to great effect. And then, yeah, I mean, I have another thing, but I would like you to interject anything on what I just said.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. I think these are really, really, really good observations about what the movie's weaknesses are. I also agree with you. I'll say this: I really liked it. I agree with you that it's kind of a mess in terms of the story. I do think that the story is
a little stronger,
and just a little clearer, a little more simple than the first Batman.
Sure,
but it also still has script problems. You said Sam Hamm really didn't, a lot of him isn't in this script, but there are a couple things that recur from the first one that I'm convinced these are personal obsessions of the screenwriter Sam Hamm. But I really like it, and I do think I like it a little better than the first one. And the reason why is because I think of that creative control that Tim Burton is given, for better or worse. I do think it is for worse in terms of making a movie that analyzes Batman in any kind of interesting way. It's very I'm not married to the idea that you can't make your own mythology that contradicts certain comic storylines, that you can't redefine these characters. I'm not particularly precious about that.
Me neither.
But he clearly he's made 2 Batman movies with no interest at all in what is conflicted about Batman, what's good about him, what's bad about him, or anything. Batman in this movie is like a total cipher who, as you said, has no arc. His only personal struggle is that he's into Selena Kyle. And
he does play on that a little bit, though. Remember in the end when he says we're split down the center? So he is interested in the duality of Batman, obligatorily or not. But,
but it's not explored.
You're right, though.
That's all tell, not show.
You're
you know?
right.
We don't. I don't think we really see any of that.
Yeah, this is not a Batman movie.
No, it really is not. So there's the first scene that we talked about where Batman fights all the Red Triangle gang. Batman does not reappear into this 2-hour movie for 35 minutes.
And he doesn't even appear on screen at all in any capacity until 13 minutes and 9 seconds in the film.
Yeah,
when the
that's
bat symbol
nuts.
shines into his home, and he's Bruce Wayne at that point.
Yes, Bruce Wayne does reappear in the intervening 30 minutes, but there's very, very little Batman in this movie until the third act.
Absolutely.
But I do think that ultimately it was better to give Tim Burton a bigger budget. I think it looks really cool. I complained about the last one looking more soundstagey. I think his Gotham weird kind of like 1930s industrialized Gotham vision is more fully realized. I like that it's more in the color palette that he likes to work with. It's all black and blue.
Very Scissorhandsy.
It's very Scissorhandsy, and every character in this movie is so Tim Burton-fied. Like Max Schreck, Christopher Walken looks crazy. Penguin looks crazy. Michelle Pfeiffer, when she undergoes her conversion into Catwoman, what I noticed is that falling off a building makes her 10 shades more pale. They cover her in white foundation. And at that point I was like, okay, so Tim Burton's main priority is not making this story coherent or rationalizing how she's become a Catwoman. And when we talk about Catwoman, I want to talk about, I'm a little unclear on what happened to her in that transition. But what he cares about is how do we Tim Burton-fy every one of these characters by any means necessary. I don't always think that is in the greater service to telling a Batman story, but I do think that it gives this movie a much stronger look and feel than the first one had, and an atmosphere, a word I said no less than 36 times on the last Batman episode, and that made me enjoy this one overall more.
Okay.
So that's kind of my general feelings, but I agree with you. I think that I think that just like the first one, the actors bring a ton to these performances that elevate the characters. But I think in terms of on the page, and I would speculate in the direction that they were given by Tim Burton, I don't feel that there's as much of a care about characters or story as much as there is the look.
Well,
of
and
everything.
it goes both ways too. Like, you know, we've talked about Stanley Kubrick a lot in this. I mean, and it's like, why even mention Stanley Kubrick in the same conversation as Tim Burton? Well, because like Tim Burton, you know, I think Tim Burton is a lot more influenced by like Woody Allen, like I mentioned, you know, where it's like, I mean, maybe that's not the best example, but like the thing about like Kubrick and Spielberg is like they didn't necessarily write. Spielberg has written very few of his movies, and then Stanley Kubrick would pull all of his movies from source material, right? But he would write them, so it's kind of one and the same to me in that way, because you feel Steven Spielberg's fingerprints on all of his movies. There's the father theme, all that. So that is an example of where directors either wrote their movies or are very collaborative. And the reason why I'm harping on that is because Tim Burton, you know, in the background of this film, he and Daniel Waters collaborated specifically on the screenplay. And I said Tim Burton is a capable director. I don't know that he is. He's a very capable artist. Like, look at the animation of the balloons in the first one. Those look like the characters in Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
A movie he did not direct, but he wrote, and, you know, it's his movie.
And he designed everything.
Exactly. He is one of the greatest designers I think Hollywood has ever seen. A brilliant mind and a very unique mind. I don't know that goth was ever even remotely as mainstream without him. And it's hard because Tim Burton has not made a great film or a good film in decades, I would say.
Yeah.
But you know, it's that thing of where it's like you go back to what brought them on the scene, and my God, is it astounding? But yeah, I think that all of his movies, even including Edward Scissorhands, which is a movie I haven't seen in many years, but like I was thinking about that movie a lot when I was watching it. I'm like, it opens with Winona Ryder as an old person, and you can kind of forgive that because she, you know, the moral of the story is that Edward Scissorhands makes it snow in a town of 38 people or whatever, you know, and you're like, okay, well, it's just ridiculous and mythical enough. In this, though, it's like, no, they talk about city planning. They talk about getting a power plant built. They talk about politics. There is that classist thing again. You know, there's all these allegories that go nowhere. And I think that's where he really struggles. Like, a director like Spielberg is going to flesh out one allegory to where it makes sense, even if it's something related to like a father, or whatever. You know, Robert Altman. You know, it's. I mean, these are the greats, but it's like that's what a good director will do. They will collaborate with the writer to flesh out certain allegories and not just have them be visual depictions that go nowhere.
I agree, man. I was thinking about that while I was watching it, about that question of like, is Tim Burton a good director? Because I was like going, it's certainly not amateurish. It's very, it's capable.
Totally.
But I'm like, do I like how this movie is like shot? Do I? Yeah, and I think it's like,
and that's your DP too, who gives you some of your best shots too, because there
Right.
are some really, really, really great, just from an angle perspective, some great shots in this.
yes, but I just don't know if it's like, if there's even a super strong visual composition so much as it's just like, what you're saying is it's like the costumes, the set design, the look of the characters, and then like the color palette of the movie is what makes it cohesive. So I guess, honestly, if it all comes together to something that works and makes an entertaining movie, I guess he did his job. But when you get into, I guess in other movies, as his career's gone on, you see just the weaknesses and not the strengths as much.
Right. And why is Nightmare Before Christmas so good? Nightmare Before Christmas. It's because it's first of all, it's an animated feature. You totally go, okay, I can accept that all of the American holidays only get a door in a forest or whatever. You know, it's an animated film. You immediately suspend your disbelief 10x, you know, for whatever, right or wrong. And same with Edward Scissorhands. In this, though, because...
And same with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's like more of a live-action cartoon.
Beetlejuice, too. Beetlejuice is so in and out, you know. And yeah, in this, it's like, I don't know if it's studio influence, but it's like, as much as I think you and I like to bash on the Chris Nolan ones, it's so easy because the dialogue is so fucking ham-fisted and awful and ridiculous and laughable in those movies. But the fact that they're shot in Chicago and Pittsburgh and all that, those don't make the movie for me. But you were talking about the like aesthetic and tone of Gotham. I think this might be a point of differentiation. I harped on the fact that there were maybe 60 people total in the first one. There are 38 people total in this movie.
There are not more. The town has not increased in population.
It's so soundstagey, and I mean, and it's like, yes, I can kick back and relax and watch any kind of movie. It is so hard. I've not worked on film productions or anything like that. I don't know how sauce is made. I can't unsee the fact that there is two corners.
Yes.
Even where Penguin is dumped and then jumps back into the water. I get
everything
the visual
takes
allegory.
place in this one town square.
Yes. And like it's so funny when the movies try to clue you in that like, hey, this is happening over here. But you're like, but it's not though, because we see Gotham from the top down all the time. And like there's one alleyway and one hall of records and one town square with 38 people.
That's what the mayor should be like in a boardroom about. Is like, hey, why is our one alley called Crime Alley? Maybe that's some of why we're having these problems. Yeah, exactly. My first note about the movie is still not a ton of people in Gotham at the tree lighting, but gone are the legions of pustule-covered street toughs.
Totally.
We
now
have
they're
gotten
all
rid of the
clowns.
covered criminal. They're all clowns again. This is our second clown-themed bad guy, which is another, like, okay.
That bugged me this time.
Why? I mean, I was just like, this is just... Tim Burton is obsessed with clowns.
Well, they try to weave it in the plot in a moment. So I should say,
a
even though
freak
Batman
show
has no arc,
a circus adopts the Penguin.
Yes, Batman has no arc, but they do immediately try to give you more Batman as detective. So Batman in a quick scene. Pardon me. Batman in a quick scene in the Batcave. Is initially I like this part too. He says to Alfred when Penguin kind of discovers his identity. He says his parents, I hope he finds them. Turns on a fucking dime and immediately becomes suspicious. But yeah, Batman basically uncovers that Penguin was adopted by a circus gang. Thus, his gang or circus that was later disbanded. Thus, his gang is all circus folk.
Right.
I don't want to get too far ahead.
Tracks a little bit, Penguin.
Yeah, because I know you want to go by character, but
no, talk about whatever.
That's I
comes
think
up.
the covering of one's tracks as to why everyone is a clown.
Yeah, which is fine. I just think it's weird to do it two movies in a row with two different bad guys.
When you want them to be disconnected visually, aesthetically, everything. It's like, that's not disconnected, Bernie.
And also, I think freak show performers are adequately disconnected from clowns, but he's trying to have it both ways, where his gang is it's a sword swallower and, a tattooed strong man. And
a beautiful woman.
Yeah, what's the lady? And a lady?
Maybe she lost some weight.
Come see the. Oh, right. She used to be like, come see the. And back then it was like somebody who's 150 pounds. It's like, my God, it's the fattest person I've ever seen. They must eat 3 meals a week.
I like her. Side note too.
Yeah.
She's effective. Her couple lines of dialogue.
She is good.
I know what you're saying though. Yeah.
Well, because
we do have a strong man. We have Vincent Schiavelli, who's not to be unkind here, but R.I.P. He's kind of a mutant on his own.
Yeah, well, isn't he like 7 feet tall and he has like giantism?
He
had like the
okay.
Abe Lincoln.
Oh,
disease
I feel like
or
a
something.
dick. Yeah.
No, I didn't think
He
you
had
were being. I
elephantitis,
thought you
yeah.
were saying he's like a strange looking guy.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was saying.
And I know he was in many, many things over the years. The thing that I always most associate him with is that Fiji mermaid episode of the X-Files.
Oh,
where
interesting.
His conjoined twin.
Oh God.
Is
that's horrifying.
getting off him at night.
Yes.
And killing people.
Yeah, Voldemort.
Yeah, it is very the baby in a train station Voldemort.
Yeah, he's I always think of him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which also stars
right.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Just like this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, getting us. I think that,
And starring Jack Nicholson.
wow, that
It
was
all makes sense. We
One Flew
solved
Over the
it.
Cuckoo and starring Joker hopeful Brad Dwarf.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yes, the voice of Chucky.
Yeah.
Um,
Now I think we can continue to discuss
Yeah,
general
please.
thoughts, but I think we've kind of naturally moved into talking about Penguin. So
let's do it.
Penguin in this movie lives in the sewer under the abandoned Gotham City Zoo.
oh, that's a sewer? I thought it was a palace.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like another
Giant halls,
huge open hall with like swimming pool there, and he's surrounded by penguins, some that are played by real penguins, and then a couple that are clearly human beings in suits.
Designed by Stan Winston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Stan Winston's all over this film.
Are there giant man-sized penguins because of Max Schreck's toxic waste that is being dumped into the sewers?
Well, yeah, I think that's the implication because emperor penguins do exist. In real
but
life.
they're not
They'd
5
probably come
feet
up
tall.
about to your waist, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say though, man, like they look incredible. It is clear, and I think that like, not to deviate from Penguin, but like the thing I do like about this movie is it's really light on the CGI. And a thing I think about the 90s, and I don't really know when this began, is that they moved away from shooting things on location to a lot of, Warner Brothers lots, not just in Batman, in action movies. And CGI just hadn't, it's not used properly nowadays. But there's something about the aesthetic that of like what Stan Winston in particular was able to bring. And a cute little anecdote is real emperor penguins and penguins that were used in this film, none of which were harmed, were cozying up on set to the men in the penguin suits. They thought they were real penguins.
Oh,
isn't that cute?
That's really cute. Yeah, the penguins are very cute.
Yeah.
Now the penguin is not
back
cute.
to the penguin. Yeah.
Let's talk about this penguin. So just in case people haven't watched this movie or haven't seen it in a long time, Danny DeVito is in 15 pounds of makeup. He has translucent white skin, dark circles under his eyes, head bald on top with long stringy hair, giant hooked penguin nose, sharp teeth, flipper hands. He's in a fat suit where he's like very, very egg shaped. He's always in like a dirty, like kind of like onesie type of thing, and he constantly drools black bile. So,
well, it gets worse as the movie goes on too, which is a thing I like that they progress. Like, so he starts out in his gross suit, but with Max Schreck's help, he kind of covers that, and then it's when he reemerges. And the bile gets worse as he becomes more vile himself.
Yes. Yeah. And Danny DeVito is fully committed. It's a pretty physical performance. Danny DeVito is like
kind of Chris Farleying it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean Danny DeVito is like a well, he's a very short guy, but he's like a larger sized dude in terms of weight. He's very agile, very physical. Anyone who watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia can see that he does not seem to shy away from doing outrageous stuff on camera. And that's very on display in this movie. I think it's a really enjoyable performance. I think
stayed in character in between breaks.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Per Jack Nicholson's advice. He took the role per Jack's advice and stayed in character.
Okay. And like, I mean, let's talk about like what we like and what we maybe don't like. But I just want to say, in terms of praising the performance, I think he does a really good job of making the penguin somebody who has been so thoroughly rejected by society, and that he, as a defense mechanism, takes a lot of delight in disgusting people with his grotesque appearance. But as the movie goes on, you do start to see that there's this vulnerability and hurt, and that that he's sad, and that he feels that rejection from everything. He doesn't do what I think you should do with that feeling, the way he externalizes it. But I think it's really great. There was some stuff that I didn't love, but what do you feel about like the penguin?
Oh man, movie? I think I just couldn't have said it better. I think that like, I don't know. I've read a little bit about screenwriting, The Man with 1,000 Faces, which is a book written in the 40s that really influenced Spielberg and Lucas. That's pretty much brass tacks of what I know. So I'm going to take a guess here and say that if a character has an arc, it's fine if they circle back to their original low point. Typically it's like Luke Skywalker, like he's a new man, he's in charge. But like the Penguin's arc is, I think he wants to reemerge, get engaged in high society. It does seem that he's been planning this firstborn business all along.
Yeah.
Which I joked in our first episode, like, that's crazy. And it is crazy. In a big budget
I believe you
film.
said that's wrong.
Yes.
Killing the first
I just want to put that on Front Street, listeners. I think that's wrong. Is this some weird continuation of the Moses allegory? Because, folks, for those of you that haven't read the Bible
my God.
or watched a movie in 30 years, but yeah, I mean, in the Moses story in Exodus, the angel of death kills the firstborn sons in all of Egypt unless you put a lamb's blood above your doorstep and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if it's that they're trying to get at with Penguin that the allegory is he's jealous of Bruce because they're both orphans. Bruce's parents were killed. Penguin's parents attempted to kill him. So as vengeance, he does outright state, like, I'm going to enact what was done to me because I'm pissed. Which is
much more self-awareness than most people who grow up and prey on others.
Yeah, and a very well-spoken person, too, for having been raised in he's remarkably verbose.
He's basically just coming out and saying, like, hey, hurt people. And that's
and I think that's a really dangerous metaphor because for folks, just to be completely serious, for folks that have maybe experienced some sort of molestation or something like that, that is not a narrative that is true or one that you should think about. And I don't think the filmmakers were thinking that deeply, but they should have.
Right.
Because that is a really dangerous message.
They're throwing out some really heavy stuff.
Yeah, but regardless, though, movie got made 30 years ago. We're not going to correct it. I don't know if they're trying to continue the Moses allegory. They're trying to do some weird parallel with Bruce that I don't think really makes sense. But to your point about Danny DeVito, I see a lot of some of the stuff that I do think is definitely pre-Me Too, obviously, and even pre-Me Too. People knew right from wrong. I see a lot of Penguin as being horny, essentially, and really, I don't think that it's so dated because I don't think it's ever portrayed you as like, hey, look at this. This is how powerful men should act. And I do see it as a lot of just Danny DeVito being himself. Like when he is meant to be the character of Penguin, it's clear. But I'd like to fill her void is a line he uses about Jan Hooks. It's very disgusting. He is kind of coming on to Catwoman. I don't know anything about Danny DeVito's character. He seems like a very, very cool man. I'm just saying, I think humor-wise, what he's bringing, that feels like Danny DeVito. Do you agree?
I could see that.
Yeah.
My problem is not that they're presenting it as behavior to be exemplified in any way.
Yeah.
And I just think that similarly to how in the first one they introduce about Joker halfway through the movie that he has aspirations of an artist, similarly they introduce Penguin's horniness like halfway through.
Yes.
And I mean, on the one hand, it's like,
oh, do you think it's an allegory for that when Shrek tries to make him a politician? He thinks that behavior is suddenly okay?
I don't think that they
I don't either.
put much thought into it.
Sorry,
I think that maybe halfway through the shoot, Danny DeVito was like, would it be funny if Penguin was like a horny creep? And they were like, yeah, go for it. Like, I think that's a good guess.
Rita, can I do it?
But I mean, he has some funny lines when he's being horny. Like when Max convinces him to be mayor, he's like, you're right. It's about reaching out, touching people, groping people. But it's also just like, I do think it always is it's like you said, it's like, it's ridiculous that the severity of the problem of treatment of women, of young actresses, of the kind of young actresses who are being hired to play parts like this, like the person Penguin, like
puts the button on,
gropes while he's putting a button on. And then you just hear all these horror stories of how these people are treated. It's ridiculous that it had to be laid out 30 years later for anyone to even act like they give a shit.
Totally.
But looking on now, it's just doesn't age as well when that sort of behavior is being played for cheap laughs and there is no deeper analysis.
Very well said,
I think that I don't hate every joke that is made about Penguin's horniness, but a lot of it did kind of make me go, this feels like a little bit icky, and not icky like in the way that they are making me look at something in this deep and thoughtful way. It's like icky that they're just doing this and are being so careless about it.
Yeah, the way I can kind of like reconcile it in my mind, and ill behavior doesn't need to be reconciled, but the Penguin is disgusting at all times. So I think that you can kind of think of it as everything he's doing is disgusting because he's never meant to look good or something like that. But we don't need to belabor the point because you nailed it. But yeah, he even has a line too with when he and Catwoman kind of break up their alliance, he says she basically says, I'm not going to fuck you in so many words.
Yeah.
And he's like, you lousy minx, you put out all the signals.
Well, yes, he says you ought to be spayed.
Yeah,
everyone
yes.
only after she becomes Catwoman, everyone only talks to her in cat terms at all times.
But I don't want to deviate too much from the Penguin though, because I know we have a lot to say about her. But yeah, I think Danny DeVito, I think this goes to Tim Burton's, like, they really try to lean into, when he becomes a mayoral candidate, the stupidity and just underbelly of politics, and Tim Burton is not up to that task to explore that. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that like I mind that at all, but like, yeah, it's just like they're trying to explore the corruption of local and state politics, and he's just not up to that task.
I agree with you. I do think the mayor subplot is also funny. I think it is effective in that it's funny. I think it's funny. I think the exchange, but I think that Christopher Walken and Danny DeVito have really funny chemistry with each other when they're plotting.
Yes.
Because it's just like two, like, I mean, Penguin says it in a very kind of ham-fisted way, but like, we're both monsters, but you are seen as a
I like that.
respected monster and I'm reviled. And then
Says
when
the same thing to Batman later in the film.
Sure. And then when him and Max Schreck team up, he's like telling him, hey, if you're mayor, how does he pitch it to him? Because he doesn't want to be mayor. He's like, I'm busy doing this whole thing of taking down Batman and finding all the firstborn sons. And Max Schreck starts going like,
my connections, you're a golden boy. Like, think of what we could accomplish. He doesn't really do a great sales pitch.
Right.
And Penguin goes, all right, I'll be mayor.
Yeah, that line is really funny to me. I want to, before we move, I mean, and we won't completely move off Penguin because he'll connect to other people's plots, but I wanted to talk about the Alfred of it all.
Oh, okay.
Alfred, as Zach very, very, as Zach pointed out very clearly last time, world's worst butler. In this one, he's not running around telling everybody that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
No.
But he also is like kind of similarly like clueless about the Penguin, because Bruce immediately smells a rat. Or I guess you're right. He doesn't immediately smell a rat. At first,
I hope he finds them.
I hope he finds
I like that
them.
part.
I do too.
Yeah. And Alfred's like, I'm on board, sir.
Yeah. I love that you like this guy.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I wrote down, I was like, oh, because Michael Keaton does some very good face acting.
Big
when
time.
He's watching the Penguin come on TV and say like, why did they give me up? I just want to, I'm not mad at them. I just want to know why they did what they felt they had to do.
That scene is heart-wrenching.
It's good. Oh my God. Danny DeVito like really, really sells the like serious undertones. And I just love it though, because Bruce, when he starts talking about his parents, it's like him kind of his internal monologue of being like, oh, right, I'm also obsessed with my parents.
Right.
Like this guy speaks to
game
me.
recognized game.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, I understand building your whole incredibly unhealthy adulthood around something that happened to you when you were 9. But like,
I understand being 34 but looking 46.
It's 1992. Everyone looks like shit. Except for Michelle Pfeiffer.
And Jan Hooks. All right.
All the men look like shit.
Yeah.
The women knew about skincare already.
Totally.
But that's the only scene where Bruce Wayne is amenable to the Penguin and open to the idea that he is what he says he is. He quickly becomes suspicious, and Alfred
Turns on a fucking dime.
Yeah. Why are you so determined not to trust this Penguin, sir? And
But then the next time he's on TV, Alfred's like, that fucking slut of a... like he uses some really old-fashioned, vile, like, name-calling thing, but it's like, oh, I guess Alfred got on board. Alfred's just a bimbo now who wants to go along with the popular people.
Right. You know? Yeah, but he's really, like, his instincts are always just so bad of just like, why would you even take a second look at this Penguin, sir?
Well, he's called the Penguin, Alfred.
Right, exactly. It's like, I don't know if you've lived in Gotham a long time, but we have a lot of like highly aesthetic villains that pop up around here.
Well, and speaking of Alfred, did you notice the retconning of the first one where Bruce, and I wonder if this is maybe Bruce disciplined him off screen a lot, where he's like, who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? I'm just standing there. Oh, hey, Vicky. And I'm like, oh, this is before Twitter. This is what happened, though. You know how movies are made now? We're like, oh, God, the new Star Wars film is basically made by Twitter outrage.
Right.
that kind of happened in this one where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that was for the fans like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did think when I was like, oh, clearly like Batman has put like Alfred on a little bit of a timeout because we don't see him being like, gone are the days of like Alfred is my family. And now it's like Alfred is like
Alfred
my
is my
butler. Yeah. Who's on his second strike. And if he tells one more woman I'm Batman, I don't care how long he worked for my father. He's in a home.
I will accept this cold soup from him obligatorily.
Yeah.
There's a scene where there's a wonderful scene in the first one where he goes, Alfred, can I have a glass of water? And Alfred has the glass of water prepared, and that's a moment that I love. In this one, he brings Batman rich guy soup, and
Fishy
Bruce,
swell, sir.
yeah, Bruce spits it out because it's cold. It's fishy swell, sir. It's supposed to be cold.
And I like it too that Bruce just then immediately starts eating it.
Yeah. It's a nice little moment, even though it's like, and also I think is like, yeah, Alfred is really relegated to decorating the tree and making excuses for Bruce in this
And
one.
doing some DJing at a certain point in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think we should talk about a couple more Penguin things.
Sure. Yeah.
First of all, with Bruce and Alfred, when Batman first starts doing some detective work on Oswald Cobblepot, he's in the Batmobile.
Love that scene.
And Alfred is in his earpiece. He's like, why are you so determined not to trust this penguin, sir? And what does Batman say?
His parents. I think he knows who they are.
Right. And what I thought was funny is he does the Batman voice even though he's just speaking to Alfred.
I thought that too. And it was quite pronounced. You know, it's.
I think he knows who his parents are.
Oh yeah. Impression King strikes again. That was perfect. That's what Penguin's doing on the other side of the wall, is searching through the
he
directories.
Makes a lot of guttural noises.
Yeah, so there's that moment, and then Penguin does have I had to think about this. This is a nod to the Elephant Man, though, directed by David Lynch.
Oh my God, I wrote that down too.
Yeah,
Please go
so
ahead.
and I think I
It's a reverse
was
Elephant
mentioning Woody Allen. I think David Lynch is absolutely very Tim Burton-y too. David Lynch, a much better director. His stories are anything but coherent. It actually works for David Lynch though, but I digress. So Penguin, there's a lot of media in this town of 38 people. He goes to the Cobblepot's grave. They're buried in an upscale graveyard. And it's a very emotional scene. So emotional, in fact, that I can ignore the fact that Penguin brushes by a headstone that just moves because it's clearly made out of cardboard. But he says, they say, Mr. Penguin. He says, a penguin is a bird that cannot fly. It's a little funny, but Danny DeVito acts his little heart out. I mean, and he says, I am a man. And which is the Elephant Man nod. John Merrick, I believe, was the person's name. It's a very powerful moment in the film. And it comes back around too in the end.
Yeah.
In a scene that is deeply emotional because somebody says Oswald, and he goes, "Don't call me that." He goes, it's Penguin, and then he shreds his clothes. He goes, "I am not a human being."
Yeah.
And it's gut-wrenching.
I am an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote down that was the reverse Elephant Man moment.
Yeah.
But I didn't catch that. You're right that the opening salvo is his.
The way he's shying away from the cameras too, he really leans into the fact that he has these prosthetic hands, presumably, and he's hasn't seen the light, and it's really effective.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Penguin's downfall leading to that I am an animal moment, because I'm just gonna say this is my least favorite part of the movie is the way Batman exposes Penguin. I just think it's really cinematically boring and
weird.
Weak.
It's so weird.
So tell them what happened.
The Penguin hijacks Batman's Batmobile, and Batman has the presence of mind to record him through some unknown device in 1992 because Penguin's tipping his hand that he's a bad man while he's hijacking the vehicle.
Yeah.
So listeners, normally where Alfred will appear on your Batmobile screen monitor, Penguin is now appearing because he's, like I said, hijacking the Batmobile. And he's saying these Gothamites are pinheads.
Yeah.
He says, you have to admit, I played the city like a harp from hell.
Yeah.
Which is not a phrase I've ever heard before.
No.
And then
and he also, the one that doesn't expose him as duping the citizens of Gotham, but I think it's really funny while he's controlling the Batmobile and driving Batman into pedestrians and everything possible. He goes, maybe this is a bad time to mention this, but my license is expired.
That's Danny DeVito. That is
so
Danny DeVito.
funny.
It's like I could see that in Always Sunny. Like, and that's where it really works. So So anyways, Batman has the presence of mind to record him. And then later on, when Penguin is giving his mayoral speech to the town of, it's about 18 people in that scene, but they push in really tight with the camera.
We lost 20 folks.
Yeah.
But there is a person of color, though, in the crowd, finally.
Oh, okay.
This is a very white movie. I don't know if we covered that.
Yeah.
So Batman manages to take that recording that was made in the Batmobile and just hotwire it into the loudspeaker.
On a CD.
On a CD that he does like a record scratch. The birth of hip hop happens on screen.
It's like Back to the Future where they're like, Chuck Berry didn't invent rock and roll. This white teenager did.
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
It's like black people didn't invent hip hop. Batman did.
In 1992. And he has eye contact with Alfred as the birth of a whole genre of music that now owns the world.
Yeah.
Took over.
Which
He
also
goes, "What the-
CDs do not scratch like a record.
And he
when you
looks
do
at
that.
Alfred, and Alfred goes,
Yeah. Ooh, that's tight, Master Wayne.
good job.
So that's the Penguin's downfall, or how Batman sort of like. Batman does defeat him though in person by sort of reorient. I don't want to because I want to get to Catwoman, but reorienting the Penguin's army. I don't really know what's happening in that scene, to be honest with you. I don't know why there's an army of penguins with... because, I'm sorry, folks, Penguin does decide when he can't kill the firstborn child because Batman does foil that. Batman does foil some crimes in this one. He's like, let's just kill everybody. And there's a lot of Nazi symbolism in this part.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get into that too much, but there's a part where they mention the Reichstag fire, which for folks that are World War II buffs, before the Nazi Party came to prominence, they burned the Reichstag library, allegedly, but everyone knows they did it.
But Penguin's final act definitely feels like Hitler in the bunker.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
we're
Scorched Earth policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, we can move away from that, but that's not us making shit up, listeners. It's there. But again, why? That's the thing. It's like, why? So Batman reorients these penguins. They have a physical fight, which I think is pretty well done for a Batman costume that is somehow more unwieldy than the first one. It has to do with the way they pinned his cape on his shoulders, but whatever. And Penguin says one of my favorite lines in that he says, can you do it, Walker? What is this? What is the line?
I'm not sure.
You're just mad because you're a freak who has to wear a. Can you do it, please?
You're just jealous that I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask.
Yeah. So
doesn't Batman say you might be right?
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Oh.
Batman says you might be right.
He should have said I might be wrong. So, in the first, I have this written down, I don't know where, but in the first movie, there's a line where when Batman's Batpod, his flying Batpod, is coming towards Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson basically says before he gasses all of the Gothamites, and now I will relieve you of your little lives, like something like that. It's a great line. And I've always thought that is Jack Nicholson talking to the audience, just being like, I've won the lottery of life. Like in this, I feel like that's Tim Burton speaking to the audience through Penguin. Like that is, it's a great line.
Yeah.
And, it's just, and then, Batman throws him into the toxic water. And as far as we know, that's the last we've seen of Penguin.
Which also, let's just say about this toxic water, it's
occasionally toxic.
It's toxic when it needs to be for the movie, but the rest of the time it's fine.
Christopher Walken falls in it, retrieves a gun that somehow is in working order, even though it's been in the water.
It's really slapdash the rules of this movie, and I think where that's the most egregious is in what happens with Catwoman. It's very self-contradicting and weird what the rules we're operating under are. But in any case, I did want to kind of get through Penguin's whole arc, and
well, can we talk about his death, or can you take us through that?
Yeah, no, please.
No, you take us through.
I think his death scene is tremendously effective.
Thank you, Danny Elfman and
yes,
Danny DeVito.
the
It's the Dannies. It's the Dannies.
It's the Danny on Danny team up. So like Penguin falls into the water after their fight.
We kind of forget about him.
We forget about him because Batman and Selena Kyle and Max Schreck have their showdown.
Sure.
And then Penguin
ascends out of the water.
Ascends out of the water with the black bile just pouring out of his mouth down the front of his white shirt.
Stan Winston.
Choking on this like black blood.
This is nightmare stuff. This is the stuff of nightmares.
And he goes towards Batman, goes to grab an umbrella. We've not mentioned that his umbrellas are weapons. He has an umbrella that's a gun, an umbrella that's a knife,
one that's a baby
flamethrower, and then he has one that has a baby mobile that he was going to use to Pied Piper the firstborn babies into the water. All very horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he goes to pick up a weapon umbrella, opens it, and it's the baby mobile one. He drops it and choking through his blood says, "Well, I grabbed the cute one."
Yeah, I'll murder you momentarily.
Yeah, and then start saying,
I need a cool glass of ice water.
I'm so tired. It's so hot. I just need a cool drink of ice water. Falls flat on his face. And then his giant penguins come.
Yeah,
and
it's so
usher
emotional.
him into the water. It's really good. The music is like that twinkling, creepy Danny Elfman score, and you just like, he's so utterly defeated, and it's such a pathetic death that your heart really breaks for him.
You realize, it's a villain with like a sympathetic angle in a way. Like you forget, you're almost able to blame Tim Burton in your mind for the weird firstborn thing, and you just see, it's the freak is an offensive term, but it's the freak of it all, and it's like, I think that's where probably The Elephant Man was. That movie is heart-wrenching too. Totally different tone, but like, and he dies, and his emperor penguins drag him in. That topographical shot is really cool and sad. And even though Earth to Burton science called bodies float, there's a shot of Penguin just sinking into the water that I think is maybe the best shot of the film. And it's, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a prosthetic or anything, but I think Danny DeVito looks dead, and he's sinking, and the black bile is coming out of his mouth. It's just a really, really well framed shot.
Yeah, and that's Penguin.
Yeah. Can we get to the rare of it all?
Well, should we talk about Max Schreck?
Sure.
I don't think we'll have as much to say about him.
Yeah. Where are we at?
Well, I mean, it's going to take as long as it takes. We're at an hour 40.
Okay, cool.
But so Max Schreck, Christopher Walken's character.
Batman Returns is longer than the first one.
There you go. And this will be longer than our first episode. This is Idiobat Returns. I'm just going to tell you my thing about Max Schreck that may be confirmed, may be very obvious, and I think I'm clever for noticing it. Or maybe just a total flight of imagination by me and just me being stuck in the current zeitgeist. This character is based on Donald Trump, right? Like Donald Trump of the powerful.
Yes.
I mean, he was already a famous New Yorker real estate developer.
Yeah.
But the hair, the dialect.
Dude, you're blowing my mind right now.
And the specificity of what he does, where it's like Catwoman is going like, Penguin is like, I'll expose that you own every fire trap apartment in this town and all that stuff. I'm like, this is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They totally based this character on Donald Trump. And also, he's,
Well, you don't think he's Trump's father?
No,
because Chip would be.
Right, sure.
Can't carry it too far, but I think you're onto something, dude.
That was it. I was just like, God. I really think that, and not only that, Zach, and this was before The Apprentice, but I'm like, not only does he sound and kind of look like a Tim Burton nightmare version of Donald Trump, he utters Donald Trump's famous catchphrase in the end of the movie and says, "You're fired. You're fired."
Selena Kyle, you're fired.
What if they took that from Batman Returns?
A young 55-year-old Donald Trump watched this movie and was like, I like that.
Well, and there's the scene where Christopher Walken, Kevin McAllister comes into one of his department stores and he doesn't help him out.
Sorry, I was staring at Zach blankly. I forgot that Donald Trump
is
was
a total dickhead in Home Alone 2.
Yes, and you know what? My son watched Home Alone 2 for the first time during the Trump administration and looked at me and was like, why is Donald Trump in this movie?
I don't know,
I'm
son.
like, I don't know.
Different
because
time.
we didn't know.
The same reason Tim Curry's in it, son.
Yeah, because he's a great actor.
I think that is stellar, man.
But it just feels like very specific, and like the screenwriters to me were like, let's do a cartoon version of a Donald Trump guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you have it? I have a Shrek moment. For Chris, even though Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken a good actor, I don't think it's actually known.
I think he's great at being Christopher Walken.
I think so too.
I've never seen him display any range whatsoever, but I enjoy him every time I see him.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. So, the moment I think it's again, and this bleeds into Selena Kyle, so I'll keep it quick. But when he kills Selena Kyle, it thinks he kills her when he pushes her out the window. I really like his movement and his facial expressions when he fakes her out. That he essentially says a line, listeners, like, she says, like, what are you gonna do? Kill me? And he goes, yes.
She says, it's not like you can just kill me.
Actually, it's a lot like that.
Oh, see, you're nailing it even more, dude. That was good.
And then they both laugh, but something's up, and he pushes her out. And I just think it's a great piece of acting.
I agree, and I do
from both of them.
I do like I think you have said, and I think I agree. I don't think this movie is very sophisticated in its like political outlook, but I do like that the bad guy is a slumlord billionaire, and that they make it very clear he is a complete monster who the law can't touch.
Absolutely.
And that is Selena Kyle's motivation for why she wants to do what she is. She's like, I'm taking my revenge on the Max Shreks of the world.
Totally. And they tried to do this in the Nolan movies and in this new one. I didn't really have a problem with it in the new one because I think Zoe Kravitz did a good job, but it's so funny to me that with all the money and being able to shoot on location, and Anne Hathaway, who, is a fine actress, it's so much better in this movie. Yeah. When it's like, I was joking that the mayor has all the power. It doesn't matter. It's like, I believe her. Anyways, we're going into Selena.
No, that's okay. I wanted to know if the Trump thought occurred to you about Max Shrek.
It didn't.
I think literally every scene Christopher Walken has in this movie is hilarious. I think he's incredibly funny. I
don't laugh at the scene between he and Selena when he discovers her in his office. I think he's legit creepy, and I buy him as a character.
I'm with that, but you know what is funny is the scene between him and Penguin that we already. And there's there's a moment. So I know we talked about Penguin, but the Penguin who, as a defense mechanism, takes pleasure in freaking people out. When he first sees Max Shrek looking at him horrified, he goes, "Hi. I believe the word you're searching for is ah!" And then
such a great line.
And then there's a really funny moment at the end of the scene where they make their alliance. Max Shrek makes his deal with the devil, where he's like, "Okay, and Penguin hands him the disembodied hand, and Max Shrek kind of makes this little face like, "Oh, Penguin," like he's already kind of gone, like, "You're a creep, but you are a creep."
But he does have a profound love and affection, at least verbally, for his Hitler Youth son grown up. Chip. Not Chip. Like, everything he's saying verbally, I don't see any real genuine tells of like physical effect. Someone, it's not what you say, it's what you do. I don't see that he actually loves his son, but he's
all
constantly
legacy shit.
Telling us, yes.
It's that, like, my firstborn. It's the gross rich guy thing of like, I'm building this empire that my bloodline will inherit.
Right. Yes. So he loves his son a lot, supposedly. And Chip, we've already talked about Chip. There's not much else to say.
Dad.
He's like this weird Nazi. I don't know what else to say. It's so terrifying, though. Dad. Do you have anything else on Walken you want to talk about?
No. Do you want to talk Fife?
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because we only did 5 minutes for Batman.
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
He ties in very nicely to the greatest piece of acting in a film that came out in 1992 from a world-class actress.
Yes, let's start. Let me start it here,
please,
and you can let me know if you agree with me. In a movie where we have really, really praised the look, feel, art direction, the performances of Danny DeVito, I think that the Catwoman parts of this movie are head and shoulders the best part of the movie, like in a league of their own above every other element of this movie,
dude. I'll do you one better. I think that this is the most brilliant piece of acting. And listeners, I'm not just saying this because we happen to be talking about a Batman movie. I've seen At least 5 movies. No, I've seen a lot of movies, and who am I to judge? I'm not an actor. I think this is the greatest demonstration of an unhinged person I have ever seen. And I think that's extra true because her dialogue is pretty bad in some points. Walker mentioned that we're supposed to think she's nerdy. I mean, acting is more than just remembering your lines and all that. I'm not going to tell people what acting is because I don't fucking know. When she's meant to be nerdy, though, Michelle Pfeiffer it was and is a beautiful woman. She does somehow look less attractive with just the expressions she's making. And has very little to do with how she's stylized. Her dress is kind of drab, whatever. But like, I think that shows a lot. But, when she goes back to her house, her insecurity is fully there for you. You could see like, oh, this is a beautiful woman. Well, it doesn't matter. Like, looks are more than skin deep. She's an insecure person and you buy it. Lonely. And then
Selena, hi. About that Christmas getaway we have planned?
I'll be going alone.
What's the doctor's name?
My analyst thinks that I should be.
It really is a Woody Allen movie.
It is, dude.
My analyst thinks I need to be my own person and not an appendage.
Oh, God. And then she has some snarky comment back. I'll tell you which appendage.
Some appendage.
And then she gets a message from herself saying, go back to the office, which is what leads to her discovering the criminal plot that Shrek has planned. He pushes her out a window.
I feel like I interrupted, though. I'm sorry. I feel like I interrupted your praising, though, of the portrayal of mania.
So she gets pushed out a window, under the boot of big money. And she does get resurrected by cats in a ridiculous scene that I also think is very effective. You're able to, when something's good, you're able to push aside how ridiculous it is. There's no story to how that happens. There's no anything. So she comes back to her apartment, and she's had what would be a normal, like, as somebody who's had a concussion, I can tell you it's very strange existence for the first couple days. But she has had that 10x, but she's not lost it fully yet. But she's playing back her phone messages, and the message that tips her over the edge. This is really well thought out. Is an automated message from Shrek department store for a type of perfume. So it's like it's insult to injury upon insult and insult and insult and insult because
the ladies will want to know where you got it.
Yes.
And the men won't complain either.
And this is where she loses it. She's guzzling a gallon of milk. It's pretty sexual, but
also really gross.
Really gross. Yeah, I love the 50-50 there. I think this is like, as much as I was kind of ambiguously alluding to Burton's portrayal of women, she splits the difference because it is sexual, but it's gross. Or he splits it. I don't know who does it. Maybe it's a little bit of both. And so she throws the milk carton, and then Danny Elfman again, highlighting the brilliance of the scene. It's like the movement. I don't know if he develops his score in tandem with what's shot or if it's a little bit of both. But like the slamming of the doors just match perfectly with everything. And she just tears up her fucking apartment. She has a pink
neon
light. And it says, hello there. She's so sexy. I'm not going to say it over and over, but she's so sexy. She just whacks the letter O and the letter T. So it says hell here.
Yep.
And the casual nature with which she does it, I'm just like, oh, girl. Do you agree?
Yes. And the scene of her having her psychotic break, which I think is what we should call it, in her apartment,
her face.
is the best scene in the entire movie. And again, for me, the score is so perfect. That and probably the penguin's death are probably my two favorite scenes in the entire movie. But that scene, I'm like, I could really, and again, we don't need to harp on it over and over, but I am so smitten with Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie that part of me is like, I feel like this is just, I kind of just want to watch her do stuff, but she's an incredibly charismatic, compelling actor. I really buy it. Zach already said what's happening with her makes no fucking sense.
Putting stuffed animals down the garbage disposal.
Well, I just mean that she falls out a window, a bunch of cats lick her, and that turns her into Catwoman somehow. Makes
Still
no
effective
sense.
acting in that scene, too. She's having a seizure like one does after you have a bad concussion. That's a great piece of acting in itself.
Totally. And just the scene of her finally losing it is, like I said, it is my favorite part in the movie.
Yeah, and so much so, like, you look at the things on screen. watching somebody sew is kind of like watching somebody read. She makes it interesting. You know, and I'm not trying to be like, hey, I cancel out, you know, praising her acting with a comment upon her looks. Like it's not about that. It's like, I think that Michelle Pfeiffer, and this kind of has to do with, I think, how the character's written in a really great way. It all feeds into itself. Like I listeners, I think a woman with, as a heterosexual male, a woman with a in-charge agenda who has her own vision and priorities is like, that's in 2022, like that is what we aspire to think is beautiful, and she absolutely has that. But the dichotomy with that, not with me necessarily, but that Batman has, is sort of like an Eyes Wide Shut. Like the main question that Eyes Wide Shut asks is, we want a partner who is free, who chooses us, but we want to control them. But the second you control them, this is the author, by the way, not me. The second you control them, then you no longer have somebody with free will. And I feel like, in a way, Batman is sort of wrestling with that. Like, he loves how independent this woman is, especially in contrast to like Vicky Vale, right? Yeah, and yet that's what like is so attractive to him, and yet like that is sort of what eludes him. Mm-hmm. Did I lose everyone?
No, I think
okay.
I think that's
know
great
I'm in
analysis.
really risky waters here, but
No, I think that's why I was like,
my heart's in the right place, listeners.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if look, I can't speak for the listeners, but it resonates with me, and I think that what makes the Catwoman stuff the most interesting part of the movie is the movie logic around what happens to her is like pretty fatuous and like doesn't always make a ton of sense, but it still becomes the most compelling parts of the movie. Like, I think that you already touched on the way that they're portraying her character. It's like pretty essentialized in terms of like, she's a loser and then she's super sexual. But I also think that the performance does an incredible job of like, if you've ever been around somebody who is manic, which is I feel like what Selena Kyle post break really is kind of manic depressive. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, this person is, I'm super drawn in. I'm super like pulled towards them. Yeah. They're cracking jokes. They're compelling. They're energetic. They're, you know what I'm saying?
They're
like,
calm and they need to be.
Right. And I'm all pulled in by it. But then it's like, oh, but now I'm getting a little freaked out.
Yeah.
There's like some manic laughing that is turning into crying. That is,
her laughter is so maniacal and compelling, and not, I mean, you just think about being an actor and like that shit's hard to do convincingly, you know?
So that's a different observation than the one you just made, except to say, I do think this stuff is in the movie. I just think it's maybe not, it's definitely not in the movie with the same level of intentionality as it is in an Eyes Wide Shut. But I do think that Pfeiffer's playing it that way. And I think Batman, Michael Keaton, is probably playing it the way you're saying, of just like, what am I drawn to and scared of about this one?
Totally. I mean, yeah, and I think that's the story of finding what you like, right? Is that like, and you have to be able to reconcile that, you know, and thank God that, you know, I don't want to continue that point, but I really, really connect with that. It's not that, you know, I want somebody that is that unhinged, because that's the way she plays it. But it's like, I think that is a connective tissue that it shares with the first one, is that like, you know, we made a lot of jokes and stuff about Vicky Vale's world being upended by one crazy night. Well, this time, Walker,
they don't go that route this time.
Bruce is so virginal. Yeah. Like they never consummate their relationship, near as I can tell.
Oh yeah.
They get frisky on the couch.
Yeah, it's all just foreplay.
It's all handsy. And this is gonna make me sound a little bit like sheltered or whatever, but like in a way I think that sort of drives like the intensity of a little bit, because they get pretty naughty. She licks him. They have like little back and forth. I mean,
when they're dancing, it implies that she grabs his bulge, and says no hard feelings. She makes a kind of exhale and says semi hard.
Yes, absolutely. And I
can't believe we were allowed to watch this movie.
No, totally. Well, it's all like whispered and I mean, I watch all my movies with subtitles on now, so like it's crazy how much I've missed in the past. But yeah, I mean, it's like they never, it's never implied. I don't know if this was retconning because people thought maybe the fact that he kind of date raped Vicky was a little bit weird. But no, I mean, she is fully in charge. And even when Batman tells Alfred to make an excuse for him on their date, he goes, tell her I had a big deal come up or a conference and Alfred's like, I've got it, sir. I know how to how to protect.
I've had practice doing this sort of thing for you by now. I know what you just let her into the Batcave.
Yeah. But then he doesn't. I wish we could have seen.
That's
what
how Alfred solves every awkward romantic situation. Is just he panics and tells her he's Batman.
Why don't you come over here, Catwoman?
But he doesn't even get a chance to give his excuse because Selena Kyle has to go too. She's got to go be Catwoman. And so, yeah, it's just like, it's this really cool thing where even though it is hilarious that Bruce is so original, I want to touch on that more when we get to Batman, but, it's a very interesting retcon. And I mean, you just said your favorite moment in the movie was that kind of montage scene of her losing it. I would say that is my favorite too. Maybe as far as montages go, that's my favorite. My favorite scene with her is when she's skipping rope around the department store. And that is Michelle Pfeiffer, folks. Like she did have a body double for there's a scene where she does gymnastic like flips. It's very clear that's not her. She saves a woman from being raped. Great. Better than Batman has ever done.
This is the first scene of her out on the streets as Catwoman.
Yeah,
I love this part.
We see a really kind of wide angle shot where you can't really make it out. You can just see that she's made this dominatrix suit. And she's like...
That's very S&M-y.
Yes, yeah. And so she has a line that reminds me very much of the line in Army of Darkness. She goes, I don't know about you, but I feel so much yummier. And you can hear all these kitties. There's a line in Army of Darkness, folks, which she says, I may be evil, but I feel great. So she does that, and then you kind of forget about her for a second. Then she's downtown on our familiar street corner, 38th and Shrek, and a man is clearly about to rape a woman. And she plays tic-tac-toe with her big old claws on his face and doesn't really hang out with her gal pal to see if she's okay. The girl tries to thank Catwoman, and she's like, fuck you, take care of yourself a little bit. I don't know.
Well, the woman goes, oh my God. And Catwoman grabs her by the face.
Very sexualized again.
Yeah, and oh man,
I am Catwoman, hear me roar. Always waiting on some Batman is what she says.
Yes, I thought I wrote down the quote. I wish I could. Well, oh well. Anyway,
she implies that you're always waiting on a man to save you.
She says it's so easy for someone like you, always waiting for some Batman to save you.
This is our first shot of her face, and you're like, and God, tip of the hat to the costume designer and everything. Her suit, I don't know if you know this, Walker, was vacuum sealed, so she could only act in it for 5 to 8 minutes before passing out.
Okay.
But when she's skipping rope around Shrek's department store, everything, that's her. And it's just great because she's kind of like, you don't need a man. I've got this. Buck the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting that messaging anyone.
Yeah.
But in the context of the film, it's pretty cool.
Yes, and she grabs her by the face, and the woman's like, ah!
Yeah.
And she grabs her by the face and says the thing about it's so easy for you waiting for some Batman to save you. And then she goes, I am Catwoman. Hear me roar. And does like 30 flips.
And I buy it. I buy it.
Great.
The scene where she's so it's like I've mentioned 3 times now that she skips rope, and it's my favorite part. That is her with the whip. A couple of foolhardy cops come in. She tells them that they're overpaid to hit the road, which I love.
And they have a very stupid little exchange with each other. Who is she? What is she?
Yeah.
I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love.
Yeah. And she's having none of it. And so she whips the guns out of their hands, and then she blows up Shrek's department store by running a microwave with aerosol cans in them and cutting a line that's labeled gas. But just her physicality.
But what does she say before the building explodes, Zach? She comes out on
Does more
Batman.
flips.
She does more flips, this time to Batman and Penguin. And Batman and Penguin are having a sidebar where Batman's going like, hey, I'm on to you.
Yeah.
And
you don't really think you'll be the mayor and win, do you?
Yeah. Right.
That was your Bob and Eckhart exchange for me.
And
they're
also,
saying quips that make no sense.
These were also trailer moments. I remember in the trailer it showing Penguin going, you don't really think you'll win, do you?
Same with Burn Baby Burn, a line that has no context and makes no sense except for the trailer.
But I like that.
So
moment.
Batman and Penguin come out, and she flips and she goes, meow, boom. And it's like, I'm getting chills impersonating the scene.
But also the meow is really funny too because it has this stink on it, kind of like she kind of looks at them and they're staring at her and she's like, and it's like she remembers like, oh right, I'm a cat.
Yeah.
Like, and she like does the meow like, all right, idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, she is in charge at all times. There's another scene where Batman knocks her off a roof. This is their first sexually tension-driven fight. And she falls into a truck carrying a load of kitty litter. You know those truckloads of kitty litter walker?
This was stupid.
She lands in it. It is stupid, and she goes, saved by kitty litter. That is straight up out of 66. But the thing I love is this is such a nice touch. She goes, she breaks character.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is fucking ridiculous. And I love that.
Yeah. Earlier in that fight, there's the great moment too. So her and Batman are he's initially doesn't know what to do. Batman definitely doesn't know whether to open fire or fall in love because he's is kind of stopped in his tracks every time he sees Catwoman. She starts kicking the shit out of him and he's doing defense, but he's trying to not hit her. Then he hauls off, hits her. She lands on the ground, goes, how could you? I'm a woman. And Batman falls for it. Hook, line, and sinker leads in and goes, I'm sorry. And she kicks him.
Yep.
Knocks him till he's hanging on the ledge. And then I wrote down the line. She says, like I said, I'm a woman and I can't be taken for granted. Life's a bitch. Now so am I. Kicks him off the ledge. It's really funny.
She sticks in with one of her claws, finds his vulnerable spot, which seems to be all over his armor.
Yeah.
But I love that. I mean, it's like, it's not the most sophisticated allegory, but it's very like struck by Cupid's arrow. Or whatever, whatever you want to call it. She finds his vulnerable spots and gets him, and to the extent where he has to pull one of her claws out of his ribcage later and asks Alfred to bring him some antiseptic ointment.
Yes. Is there a new lady in your life, sir?
Yeah. So before because I mean I could talk for 7 hours about Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie, but in their second fight, Batman's prepared. I don't know how this is going to hit with you, Walker. I don't know how it's going to hit with the audience. He doesn't hold back, and it's really good fight choreography. He like knees her in the face. She kicks his ass. I mean, I think we all know where we stand on men and women. But in the context of this film, I don't know that a Batman film has ever like properly tried to even go to that risky territory again.
Yeah.
But he's not holding back this time. She kicks his ass, and she has probably my favorite line as Catwoman. She grabs the Ice Princess, who you could tell she loathes. And she puts her whip around her, and everything Catwoman does is sexual and sort of. And she puts the whip around her. And she goes, "Gotta go, girl talk." I mean,
and drags her off. Drags her out of frame.
I love it. It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also funny too, because that's part of her and Penguin's plan to frame Batman. Is Penguin throws the Ice Princess off a ledge or scares her off a ledge with a flutter of bats. And actually another amazing shot of the movie with the score is the Ice Princess lands on the tree light.
Dude, yes.
And the tree lights up as she dies and bats all fly out of the Christmas
It's fucking
tree.
violent. It's a quick shot, but I mean, God bless the 90s when they use practicals,
Yeah, it's cool. But also that's funny too because Penguin and Catwoman are talking about it afterwards and she goes, like kind of displaying some morality.
Yeah, you didn't have to kill her.
Yeah, she's like, you said you were just going to scare the Ice Princess. And Penguin goes, she looked pretty scared to me.
Final thing, maybe not final, but thing on Michelle Pfeiffer. I talked about that the suit was vacuum sealed, talked about how just cool she is. I love when following that conversation with Penguin, he's mad that she rebuffs his sexual advances. She gets dropped into kind of a greenhouse looking thing, and this is one of her lives lost, but she's a cat, so she has 9. And she screams, and all the glass breaks in the building. I really like that moment a lot. I really like knowing a little bit about behind the scenes. This is my Warner Brothers magazine. The scene where she swallows a beautiful Amazonian-looking kind of tiny, beautiful bird of paradise.
Yeah.
That was real. That was a real living bird Michelle Pfeiffer put in her mouth.
I kept rewinding the shot.
No, it's not trickery. That's why.
Is this real?
It is real.
That's crazy.
So this movie, folks, came under a lot of fire from animal rights activist groups because the penguins, a lot of folks in attendance couldn't tell that the emperor penguins were not real, and that was seen as abuse. And, you know, I don't know. I'm an animal lover, so I don't know where the line is, but like lawsuits were leveled against this movie, and they had to explain. Stan Winston and say, no, my special effects are just that good. However, a lot of the real penguins having helmets and things to look like missiles strapped to their bodies, it came under fire. No animals were harmed during the production, and then Michelle Pfeiffer puts a fucking bird in her mouth. The bird didn't die.
And seems to have an orgasm while she's doing it. That was the moment where her sexuality, I was like,
I didn't think
laughing as I was watching. I was like, this is so silly. I mean, like I said, she's selling it.
Yeah.
But it's like she swallows a bird and just starts making
Picture when Harry Met Sally.
Like,
the fake
just
one.
like, Jesus Christ. Is there anything this woman does that is not like just like pornographic?
Yeah,
It
totally.
was really fun. They're like, how can we get another hypersexual?
Well, I love the blocking is really great though when they're going. Her and Penguin are going around the birdcage, kind of like symbolizing that she always has like a physical barrier between him because he's just up on her from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really cool. It's like reverse shot basically of them, and there's a birdcage in between them, and then she grabs the bird and puts it in her mouth.
I gotta say too, the part about her landing in the greenhouse and screaming, I didn't think about the fact that that's one of her lives lost.
Mm-hmm.
And
she reminds you though at the end.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I took that scream as she's just been fucked over by a group of dudes again.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked that moment because it's like she's been thrown out a window by Max Schreck. She's got, you know, even though we're meant to identify with Batman, she's got Batman fucking all her shit up.
Batman kills her.
Right.
Yeah.
And now Penguin has killed her because she won't have sex with him. Mm-hmm. And she just has this moment of just like, fuck.
Yeah, that's a moment where I think the directing and the actor are working great. What's cool about that scene too, Walker, is that you see her. So she falls, horizontally. She rises up as one does, and she's surrounded by plants, and her beautiful golden locks are kind of spilling out of her Catwoman costume. You don't see her again in the costume until later, and she is all disheveled the next time. So that's the last time you see her as Catwoman in that moment until later when her and Shrek have her showdown. Before we get to that, though, real quick, you were saying that her unhinged is your favorite part. I think my favorite moment that is not a montage is her and Bruce at Eyes Wide Shut. I'm sorry, I'm at Max Shrek's party.
Very Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes. I don't pretend Stanley Kubrick took from this movie. Obviously, Eyes Wide Shut is taken from Traum Nouvelle, which is a book written in 1914. However, this scene is not from this movie. It is... Michael Keaton's fine. Michael Keaton is a tremendous actor. He's acting so well in this scene though because she basically says, I'm going to kill Max Schreck, and she has this like adorable little pea shooter that she's going to kill him with, and Michael Keaton is Bruce Wayne, and he shows genuine concern and surprise. Did you kind of catch that when he's like, I don't know, and this is her again being kind of manic like you were saying, and she's crying. There's like tears. There's a lot of lust happening in that scene. It's from a different movie.
Here's what's funny about that scene to me.
Go ahead.
This is where the extent of her unwellness is on display to Bruce for the first time. Yes, right? Yeah. Like, it's like she's clearly not okay. Mm-hmm. She's laughing maniacally, sobbing. Mm-hmm. She's got a gun while they're on the dance floor and is talking about, I'm going to kill my boss. Mm-hmm. Bruce Wayne does show genuine concern and then starts making out with her. Mm-hmm. And this to me was very funny because it's like, it is so true, maybe about women too, but definitely about guys, the amount of wildly fire truck red flags you are willing to ignore if somebody is as hot as Michelle Pfeiffer is. Mm-hmm. Like, it was like Batman's kind of like, I'm really scared and I want to kiss you.
Yeah. No, totally. I think we've all had that happen at a gala.
I just thought it was really funny. It's just like, if you know, somebody he was less attracted to was doing this, he'd be like, officer, could you come arrest this woman, please?
Yeah. Bruce very quick to want to get the police involved too. He's like, we could take him to the police or something. Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
Sure.
Like you just said, Bruce is really anxious to get the police involved. Mm-hmm. And he also is like, his main moral quandary by the end is to stop killing stop Selena from killing Max Schreck, which, by the way, he does not. She does kill Max Schreck. I understand that this is a movie and it's not going to come from like a, like French Revolution perspective where we want to like drag our monarchy out into the streets and guillotine them. But I really didn't like Batman's agenda in this movie because Batman, Zach, I don't know if you noticed, kills at least 2 people in this movie without a thought.
When he puts the dynamite on the guy, I wanted there to be like, that'll teach you.
He blows a man up and burns a man to death.
Presumably dies a tortured death.
I would assume so.
Slow, painful one.
So, and this is where the screenwriting and directing is really lazy. It is a big part of Batman's code that he does not kill. They've proudly said they don't read any of the comics and have thrown that out the window.
Michael Keaton and Tim Burton got into an audible fight on set about that, though. Michael Keaton didn't agree with the direction.
Well, he was right.
Of course he was.
Because it's really stupid when all of a sudden he's on this moral high horse about not killing Max Schreck when Max is... I don't condone what those characters that Batman killed did. They're Penguin henchmen. I'm sure they've done bad stuff.
Totally.
Max is a vile piece of shit responsible directly for the death of at least 2 people. He attempted to kill Selena. We know he killed his business partner. He's a slumlord and he's a vile billionaire pig. And I really had a problem with Batman standing in Selena Kyle's way when she is completely justifiable and taking her revenge. When we see him murder people if he feels
it's
like
made worse, though, by the fact that he does murder those people because murder is wrong. But because I really like the line before that when he kind of it's a really cool Batman shot. He like does his battering essentially and does like a zip line into the sewer in the showdown, and Max Schreck says, "You're not just saving a life, you're saving something, something some rich guy would say." And he goes, "Shut up, you're going to jail." That's Batman. That is Batman. But unfortunately, the Batman that you were just talking about has been negated earlier by seeing that he will kill and smile about it.
It just made me mad that they don't give a shit. At least get the baseline of the Batman mythology right.
No, I agree.
That was it. That was my.
Well, I mean, we may as well just take the audience with us though, because what happens, Walker, with Max Schreck and Selena in their final showdown? We're in the scene. We may as well just tell him.
She electrocutes him with the taser that she got in the beginning.
Yes.
And she gets a taser off of a guy who's trying to assault her, and Batman saves her. But this is before she's gone badass. She keeps the taser. We never see it again. Pretty good, like
really
Chekhovian,
roundabout,
like bringing back the thing from the beginning, and she pulls Max Schreck up to her and says, "How about a kiss, Santa Claus?" And pulls down a live wire, kisses him with the taser in her mouth, and electrocutes
so hot. I don't know how.
So great.
And she gets shot. Let's see, she's down 3 lives, so she gets shot. 5 more times.
Yeah.
Max Schreck unloads a revolver on her, and it's really pathetic.
Then uses her 8th life, killing him.
Yeah, it's really... So I guess she gets shot 4 times. So it's kind of pathetic, but awesome, because she's at the end of her rope. Her hair's popping out of her. She's no longer like her suit. She may have gained half an ounce, I think, that day, because her suit's starting to rip. And so Max Schreck shoots her, and she's like, it's like she does. I don't want to impersonate her, but she says, 4 or 5 still alive, 6, 7, all good girls go to heaven.
Yeah.
And then he's out of bullets. Batman has peeled off his mask like it's like provolone cheese or something.
Yeah.
But I don't want to linger too long on
unnecessarily showing people he's Batman.
Yeah, and did you notice too, dude, that the eye makeup, like he's always has the eye makeup on, but then right before he does it shows it and he somehow doesn't. Yeah. Not when he's taking the mask off. The shot before he takes the mask off, it's no eye makeup.
That's
it's
really
like
funny.
Continuity. But yeah, that really covers it on Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff, but I just think yes, she's beautiful. Yes, she's amazing. But I just think a really once in a lifetime piece of acting.
Well, again, too, in her final scene, again, another reason that made me think that Max Schreck is Trump is they are making fun of how dumb Max Schreck is. Because, and it's like people thought that about Trump before he was on the national scene. He was a famous spoiled brat real estate developer, New Yorker, right? And she's been Catwoman has been revealed to be Selena Kyle, and Max Shrek sees her and goes, Selena Kyle, you're fired. And Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up as Batman? Yeah, what does she say, Zach?
Because he is Batman, you moron.
Yeah. And I thought that was great. Last thing.
She's had it up to here with Max.
Yeah, and I do think they're just like, this guy's an idiot. Yeah. Like, he just like...
I think you're right, dude. I love this so much.
Yeah, he just fell ass backwards into like an inheritance, and now we all got to deal with it.
Is that what happened with Trump? Just kidding. Keep going. Keep going.
No. Earned every penny. Honestly.
Self-made.
Yeah, self-made, and
we don't like to
no one got hurt.
Here.
Yeah. The other big screenwriting gripe I have is also fits into the Selena Kyle part of this. So yeah, I wanted to confront the fact that Batman is a murderer in this one, which I don't care for. Or if you're going to do that, be consistent about it. He shouldn't care that she's going to kill Max. Sam Hamm, the screenwriter, I'm convinced you said not much of his original vision survived, but there are two things in this script, Zach, that I'm like, these are personal signatures of him.
Yeah.
You can probably guess what one of them is, which is people realizing things through a nonsensical line of poetry that doesn't make much sense.
Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah.
No. What's the second?
But a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.
Yeah. So they're at the gala,
which is a soft rhyme.
A phrase that I've never heard before. I could handle a You Ever Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight. This one only survives on the back of those great actors.
Right, because so Batman says mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it while fighting Catwoman. They land under some mistletoe. Why would he say that?
I don't know. Like, she's
no
not going to eat it. Is he made out of mistletoe or something? Like, it's like, why not just say, hey, there's mistletoe, let's make out?
Yeah.
Is that his virginal way of inviting a kiss?
It makes no sense. No. And this is clearly the Do You Ever Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight of this movie, which that is justified by the fact that it's this maniac, and he says, I like to say that when I kill people.
Yeah.
Which is...
I always say that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's
But
creepy.
in this, it makes no sense, and it's jammed in there. The other thing, Zach, is there's a part where Selena Kyle and Batman are hanging out, and Batman is being very lame in this, or I'm sorry, Bruce Wayne. Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne are walking around, and Batman, the frame job is going successfully. Right. And so there's like a headline.
Batman blows
it. And he goes, Batman blows it. It's not even accurate. He probably saved millions of dollars in property damage alone.
What the fuck was that? I know. I was like, I thought that was Tim Burton trying to like introduce logistics of like city planning when it's like, dude, stay in your fucking lane.
And I'm also just like, is that what Batman cares about?
Dude, I thought
property damage?
Batman cares about saving lives because his parents were fucking murdered. He doesn't care about budget shit.
This is where I'm like, this version of Batman is a fucking cop, man, because it's just like, if Batman...
I'm getting like a little bit defensive, though, because I feel like you're talking about Michael Keaton. I need to just,
I'm not talking...
I know. I need to calm
down.
down.
Michael Keaton is great. And also... And we've talked a lot about how sexy Michelle Pfeiffer is. Their chemistry is smoldering, smoking hot in this movie. And that's him, too. But this version of Batman, it's like, I kill street thugs, but I don't kill billionaires. Sure. Oh, Batman's saving millions of dollars in property damage. I'm like, this Batman during the George Floyd uprisings would have been like flying in to protect the target. That's who this Batman is, and I don't like it. And this Catwoman is like a badass
champion
anarchist.
For the people.
Yeah. But during
see, that's what Tim Burton is writing for the POV where the villains are your sympathetic way in, dude.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
which I don't hate, but just
no, I mean, but like I forgot to mention
Batman.
Joker. I was saying Disney is doing this now with Cruella DeVille and Maleficent. I forgot to mention the movie Joker, which I know. I think you and I felt a little bit differently about it. I agree. This is not a Joker podcast. That movie was okay with brilliant acting, is what I would say.
Sure.
How funny is it, though, that it's like that movie has to be called Joker and 1989 is called Batman and it's a movie about the Joker?
That's really funny.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But the thing that was like, I'm like, okay, Sam Hamm thinks this is the most hilarious joke you can make. It's another joke about a very conventionally attractive, thin movie star woman's weight. And I'm
You're
not
a little more than 108. That's in the first one, folks. We didn't talk about that part.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, did we not?
Yeah, he
Okay.
says, see that thing on my belt? Grab it. And she's like, I did that the other night. You never called me
This
back.
is Vicky Vale. He carries her.
Yeah. And he says,
asks her,
how much do you weigh? She says, 108, I think. And they don't make it all the way up on his little pulley. And then he gives her shit about it later. They reconvene. He goes, you weigh a little bit more than 108. And she goes, oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So there's that, which it's like, okay, I'm already feeling like a little, it's just always weird to,
Yes.
I understand that thin people also can have body image issues and do, but it's just always makes me feel a little uncomfortable when extremely hot people are like talking about the weight they are in something like this, because it's just like, this just makes everybody feel bad.
Right.
And in this one, Catwoman,
You're like, I was born 108.
Exactly. It's just like, Jesus Christ. And it's also just like, yeah, we don't need to know. None of my business.
Yeah, totally.
And in this one, when they're having that thing about the headlines and Batman's complaining, she goes, one of these papers said Catwoman weighs 140 pounds. I don't know how these hacks sleep at night.
Yeah,
And
that bothered me too.
I'm like, clearly this guy it can't be a coincidence. This guy is like, it's a really funny joke to make about a woman's weight. And I'm just like, Sam Hamm, you gotta like do better, brother.
Yeah.
It's 1992, buddy. It's not the 80s anymore. We're woke now. Those were my screenwriting gripes.
Did we have Clinton yet? Yeah, Bush was out.
Clinton, famous respecter of women.
First year though, so we didn't quite know what was in the clock.
Yeah, so I think we could talk really quickly about the
let's
15
talk
minutes of Batman. So Michael Keaton, Tim Burton, I do want to say championed. He would not do the movie without Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton would not do another movie without Tim Burton. Was paid $11 million. Yes, please. I think that he does a good job with what he's given screen time wise. They really lean into Batman as detective a bit more. It doesn't mean that it's well done or well executed, but like he is figuring out the Penguin's origins. He is, gosh, Walker, does he do any other? I know he does some. Oh, well, he invents rap. Or hip hop, as we call it, retconning real history.
Yeah, he doesn't he doesn't rap, but he's like more of a young Dr. Dre.
Yeah,
and he's the DJ.
Nothing problematic with this.
Yeah, Alfred raps.
Yeah. So he doesn't come in the movie until 13 minutes in. He has more gadgets, is something I noticed. To slay Red Triangle gang members with. Gosh, let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I have in my notes here. I mentioned that he's very virginal. I don't think that Sam Hamm and Daniel Waters had a problem necessarily with like the fact that, I was, I guess, being cheeky, saying that he date raped Vicky Vale. It's a very dated portrayal, and it is wrong that she is drunk and he is not. I don't know if they recognized that and wanted to re-portray him as a little boy. Right? Because we talked about this. He has no idea what to do with this like attractive woman who is into him.
Yeah.
He's stopped in his tracks, but I can relate to that a lot more.
Yeah, and they do kind of make it seem in both movies like there was no one before Vicky Vale, and they definitely make it seem like there's been no one since Vicky Vale.
Well, he can't explain why things didn't work out. He just says Vicky thought Vicky. He says the word Vicky about 15 times when he's trying to. It's like, dude, Bruce, the way to like get with a new girl is not to bring up your old one excessively.
Right.
But yeah, he has more gadgets. He kills people, as you talked about. He has a new bat suit. I like the way Batman is lit a lot more in this movie. This is my last Batman thing, actually, Walker. There's a scene where he's suiting up to go kick some ass, and I love a dress montage scene. I love it in an action movie like Rambo or something, where it's like you get a quick cut. Like not Dawn of the Dead. What's the British zombie movie?
28 Days Later.
No, the humorous Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead. You know what I'm talking about, where it'll push in on your gadgets and what you're doing to get ready. It does one of those, but Batman has like a freezer full. It looks like a freezer, weirdly, of bat suits in this one. It shows he has a variety of bat suits. His getting dressed montage, it gives me a lot of vibes of Batman Forever. We haven't really talked about how this movie looks like Batman Forever a little bit with the big street things, but it's just dated and cute. But
when he's getting ready, there's a lot of shots where he'll like come like hit a mark where he like will stand stationary in front of the camera and just look off into the distance.
Right.
And it's silly because it's like Batman wouldn't do that. It's only for the benefit of the camera to get this like static shot of him like being like time to be Batman.
Well, and what's so funny, listeners, is like the exact part Walker's talking about. He comes out of it's like a safe that you can see through, full of Batman suits. But I don't know why they blocked the scene this way. He has to like walk around a Batman suit. It's so undignified. He has to like emerge, but he has to like kind of be like, oh, excuse me.
Yeah. Whoops. Oh, sorry.
And there's this weird shot of him pulling like a Batman bodysuit off of a hanger. It's like you imagine like Steve Jobs getting ready in the morning of like 500 black shirts.
I just dress as Batman so I don't have to put any mental energy into what I'm going to wear.
Yeah. Alfred is trying to explain to him the logistics of getting the Bat Pod repaired. So we see Batman working on it, showing that variety is the spice of life. You want a man who can fight crime and be mechanical. Alfred's like, it's not like we could take it into a body shop. And Bruce is like, okay, I'll work on it. But then the very next scene, only because of how those are put up against each other, I'm like, well, who made all these suits? Like, if you're worried about people figuring it out.
Well, I have another logistical question about just even Bruce Wayne's life. So we've seen he does not keep a staff at Wayne Manor other than Alfred.
I've never seen him go to work.
That's true, huh? We don't really see much of the business side of Bruce
Tell her
Wayne.
I had to go to a conference. I love how Hollywood and Netflix think you can lie to a woman. A conference? I have never in my life gone to a conference.
Tell her I had to go to a billionaire's orgy.
Please continue.
On Epstein Island.
Yeah, so no staff.
He has no staff, and when he and Selena Kyle are on their date at his house, which is he gets her to their first date is just, hey, come over. So that's slightly less virginal, or maybe it's more. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a little like
it's bold.
Why don't you
It's
come
a big
over?
swing.
Let's watch that tree lighting ceremony.
Yeah, come on, we love it. All 38 people of Gotham will be turning out for this, but they are sitting in front of the most massive roaring fire I have ever seen, and I'm like, who built this fire? Alfred is 900 years old, and this is like in a fireplace, but the fire is the size of like a beach bonfire.
Yes, yeah.
So either Batman,
and they're both wearing sweaters.
Yes. So I'm like, how is stuff getting done around here? Is Bruce Wayne a hands-on guy where he's like, yeah, I'm a multi-billionaire, but I still like to go out and chop firewood, and if not, or if so, they show that. Because
Seeing Bruce chopping firewood, yeah.
I mean, something
They have
to
it in
like
an Avengers
flesh him
movie.
out a little
why
bit.
not?
They did, right, where Hawkeye like lives out in the country with his dumb family.
I mean, no, it is a good. I mean, it's lonely around Wayne Manor, just like it's lonely around Gotham.
Yeah, no kidding.
The ghosts of Butler's past maybe help out with that kind of shit, but.
I mean, that's what's funny, though, is like they couldn't even get on location for a mansion. There's really one room that we see.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
kind of the the parlor.
Yeah.
Where he entertains where he entertains the two brief girlfriends he's had in the entirety of his 46 years on the planet Earth.
Yeah. So Batman is barely in the movie. Michael Keaton is very expressive.
Listeners, sound off about if you think Michael Keaton's handsome. My feeling is that most people will say yes, but I think the ladies like the Keaton.
I think so too, and I think that I think it's cool, even though he and Burton were in each other's corners. Like he wouldn't come back because Burton didn't want to direct the third one. I do like that he got into a verbal altercation about the character of Batman. It's cool that somebody was there to kind of fight on screen. Michael Keaton is actually a really great writer. We talked about that he's a stand-up comic. He's a really great improvisational actor. The movie Birdman, I know he didn't write, but I do think that there's a lot of meta layers to that. You can just tell he's a very sophisticated person.
Yeah.
As most actors are. Actors are talented and creative people too.
He's such a small part of it, but I really love him in Jackie Brown.
Oh, he's tremendous in that.
Yeah, he's
and also talking about integrity, Michael Keaton made some odd choices after he retired the character of Batman. I think we can retire this episode because this is the last of the Keaton.
Yeah.
Well,
let me ask you one thing before we go out. And we are going to be able to land this thing around the 2.5 hour mark. So good for us. Do you think we should should we continue past the Burton years? Because I'll tell you what, the next Batman movie
is a biggie.
It's the first Batman movie I ever saw in the theater.
Really?
And I think you too. I think you, me, and Dad saw it.
The first movie or Batman movie?
First Batman movie.
I think you're right. Oh, yeah. No, I didn't see either of the other two in theaters, of course.
But do you remember? I think you, me, and Dad went and saw it at Del Oro during a daytime showing.
Yes. Yeah.
Should we talk about it?
I don't know. I think so. Listeners.
I think so too.
Right. Write us.
Idiobat forever.
I mean, it was a big one. This is the same Christmas. That was the same Christmas we got Dumb and Dumber on VHS. I've seen that movie too many times. You know, Jim Carrey and One Face. What's the Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah, he actually has
heads.
Twice as many faces as you were guessing. I think we should do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're gonna get back to talking about the boys. We can't wait to keep talking Radiohead with you guys, but it's really, really fun to occasionally take these little deviations into the Caped Crusader.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
So your verdict was that you liked it more than the first one?
Yeah, I had a heck of a time watching it. I think that the first one kind of diminishing in my estimation or kind of diminishing in my esteem from how I remembered it brought me in with a different set of expectations that this one benefited from. But I don't think that there's any element, as much as I love Jack Nicholson's Joker, I don't think there's any element of the first one I liked as much as Catwoman in this movie. And I just appreciated that it had a stronger aesthetic.
Well, I'm just going to credit you, brother, and say doing this podcast, I shamefully admitted, Amnesiac will have come out, that Kid A has really, really risen in my esteem to perhaps at this point my favorite Radiohead album. I did say that on last episode. I'm so glad that you had me rewatch this one because I feel like I've grown up a little bit. And I would say this one I like more. It reminds me. It reminds me of a really particular lonely type of heartbreak. I don't know if you've ever had it where you and somebody have parted ways, but you know you'll have to see each other again.
Yeah.
And it's painful. But that's called being an adult. So that's what this reminds me of. Because he and Catwoman are going to have to interact, but he doesn't get to have the girl.
Right. And when they interact, it's going to be his adversaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
totally.
That's painful, but that's cool.
Wow. Can't relate at all. Listeners, no, I want to say one last thing, actually, because if you're going to give me credit for inadvertently causing you more enjoyment of Kid A, I will say I listened to our first Batman episode, and I go pretty hard on that movie. And yeah, listeners, I listen to this podcast. I'm a fan of the podcast. Well, I listen to it when I edited it, and then I listen to it when I am trying to climax during intercourse. Listening to that episode and hearing you talk about that Batman movie made me like it way more as time has gone on since watching it.
Okay.
So I stand by the criticisms, which you all took in good fun, and you had plenty of your own. But as I listened to us discussing it, I was like, Zach is making me like this movie more.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm glad that we're rubbing off on each other in that way.
And we should rub off on the listener. Listeners, listen to that episode.
Yeah. Please go back and listen to the Batman 1989 episode. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Tell the Radiohead lover in your life or the Radiohead curious person in your life.
Or the Radiohead Batman lover in your life.
Yeah, God. If there's
what is the Venn diagram?
Listener, if you love Radiohead and Batman, contact us and be our best friend, because clearly we should be hanging out. All right. Well, with that, we're going to leave you, and we look forward to talking to you about Radiohead again next week. I have been Walker Glenn.
I'm Zach Glenn.
And take it easy, listeners. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Idiotalk is a Glenn Brothers production. Get in touch with us at idiotalk.podcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at idiotalk.podcast. And thanks for listening to